Hey everyone, happy Tuesday and welcome to GameFace, episode 328 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your humble host for the next couple hours of intense game discussion. And alongside me, I have two co-hosts, Matt Kyle and Luna Kyle. Just like clockwork, when the show starts, she hops up here. It is really uncanny. And it's weird that we did the show for so long and she never did that.
Well, she had to get used to you.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Yep, now she's a permanent co-host of GameFace. Hope you guys are doing good. Hope you guys have had a great week since we last saw you guys. I, however, have not. I've actually had a really rough week. One of my best friends from my hometown died this week. I realized after he passed it, he may have been my best friend. I don't really call friends. I don't scale friends. Like, I never really looked at life that way. But this guy I knew from 5 years old. And because my parents were divorced, I jumped around so much that this is like the only friend that I had that I ended up knowing like my whole life very closely. We went through all our phases together. We were like jocks or whatever when we were kids. We played sports, and then we started breakdancing, and then we started skateboarding, and then we started going to punk and hardcore shows, and then we started raving together. Like, we went through all the phases of our life together, and he passed away in his 40s. Sean Patrick Lee, rest in peace. So it has been a rough week. It's hard to play games when stuff like this happens. I started feeling a little bit better in the last couple of days, so I really just, like, the last 2 days, I have just played games like a madman to try to get ready for the show. But it's been a tough week for your boy Shane. So if you're the type, maybe send out some positive vibrations to his parents. He was an only child, and he was their only child. Anyway, it's been a tough week. I'll just leave it at that. So hopefully you guys' week has been better. That's all I can say about it. But games are coming out. We've got a big game to talk about today. There's a big event this week too. Lots of housekeeping to get to. Lots of little stories that maybe we should have had some of these as full topics for GameFace. Maybe I judged it wrong, but lots of housekeeping stuff to get to, and some big time stuff.
I mean, we can turn anything to a full topic.
You're right. You and I. It is crazy, Matt. You and I can talk about anything for a really, really long time. It's really interesting. Like, I don't know why.
We're straight white guys.
I guess. Is that it?
Yes.
But some crazy stuff happened this week that we
have opinions.
Yeah, we definitely are opinionated. That's for sure.
A man is here with his opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, follow us on Twitter, by the way, if you like opinionated people.
Jedi Survivor delayed to April 28th.
Nuh-uh.
That's what they're saying in
That's
the chat.
Surprising. Well, there you go. There's another piece of housekeeping that we wouldn't have got to except for you guys. April 28th, that's not a big delay.
That's like a month.
Yeah, that's not a big deal. Yeah, that's not a reason for alarm if you have it on your fantasy team.
It is interesting that puts it out of the fiscal.
It does. Actually, you're right. Interesting.
So something was needed,
which means that was there was something.
Yeah, that was required.
That was a big deal
because you've already got the like marketing plan in place at this point.
Yeah,
like
you've already got the ad buys.
Like that stuff's shipping to the distribution warehouses already almost.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a pretty fast change.
So they found something.
That's less than 2 months from now. Was supposed to come out. So yeah.
So something was wrong. Happened. But they caught it, so that's good. But I
think that game needs to be real solid. Because the last one had a little bit of
little.
I've been replaying that on my new PC because it looks real nice. and yeah, it's.
By the way, Matt's new PC is just absurd.
Yeah, it's all ready.
It really is ridiculous.
It's ready for Starfield.
It's awesome. It really is. For that money, it better be awesome. Mm-hmm. So anyway. That's a surprise.
Yeah, and then El Guapo's asking about the day before, which we talked about last week.
Oh, right, because it lost its title.
Well, yeah, it turned out it didn't legally own its title, but as you thought when they announced it, it did not get delayed because of that. It got delayed for other reasons.
Yeah. It probably needed to be delayed, let's be honest.
One of the developers, I saw another interview where they basically admitted, we had other reasons to do it, but that was it was nice to bundle that in with the name not owned properly thing.
Yep.
So maybe we'll see that by the end of the year. Maybe we won't.
Yep. So yeah, that's kind of a smaller story. Jedi Survivor, bigger story. But the biggest story that we're actually not going to dedicate a topic to this week, yesterday, we got reporting from IGN that the big three, Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, are not going to attend E3.
I mean, two of those aren't huge surprises, but Nintendo, that's a new.
I really thought Nintendo would be there till the bitter end.
Yeah,
because it was the only one left on the show floor at this point.
Left, and it's Nintendo's so corporate anyway that it's just felt like, of course, they'll just do that. It's like, why not?
Yeah,
they've already got the booth. And Nintendo is also the one who's least likely to do any kind of substitute event. Microsoft is Phil Harrison. That guy is slippery in an interview, man. Like that interview he did with Kat Bailey, who was a great interviewer. Some of that now, because there was like all the stuff about we can't wait to get back to Los Angeles and da-da-da.
Right.
Like it was didn't say E3. He means go to their theater across the street from E3.
Well, the day before there was a statement that was released that basically, like, we are doing an event in the summertime framework or whatever, and that sent up red flags to me.
Yeah.
I was like, uh-oh. And then the very next, and I wonder if IGN's reporter also picked up on that and was like, you know what?
Poking around.
I'm going to start digging around and see what's going on here.
That feels like the correct time frame for that.
It does. I mean, if you're a news editor, that's what you should have been doing. So...
not a lot of those left.
Not a lot. There really aren't, man. Then there's less by the day because sites don't want to pay for them. So I'm glad IGN had somebody there to sort of gumshoe the story out. But how do you feel about this, Matt? Is this
iconic characters of Borderlands?
Borderlands. Yeah. Matt, how do you feel about this? I mean, is E3 going to exist still?
I've been saying it's dead for years, so yeah, it's gonna. I mean, it'll zombie on, but I don't know what the hell's gonna be on the floor. Like Square,
bunch
of indie stuff,
Warner Brothers.
Sega, Atlas.
Because here's the other thing. Bethesda used to be on the floor.
You might need to only pay for one hall now.
Because, Bethesda used to have a booth on the floor, but now my guess is that's gone.
Yeah,
because they're with Xbox now.
They're with Xbox.
So there's another booth that's gone. Ubisoft?
Yeah. What would they do? Like,
I mean, they don't even have any games.
No, not really. Well, I mean, they talked about there's a new crew coming. They talked about this morning.
Yeah.
They said it's one of a kind.
Yeah, just like the last crew.
And as I can't remember who. One of the articles about, maybe it was IGN. I can't remember. One of the articles was like, it's even more one of a kind if you forget that Forza Horizon exists. But like, it's like, okay, the crew is the thing that you're going to keep rolling on here. Like,
I mean, that's where Ubisoft's at right now, Matt.
Who likes the crew?
Nobody. It's still ongoing. They keep adding content to it.
Yeah, the Crew 2 still gets some stuff.
It's crazy.
Once in a while. I guess Capcom,
all the Japanese guys will probably, because it's their one chance to really reach out to the Western market and make those connections.
They can do that whenever they want with the fucking internet. Like,
yeah, but for them, the internet's a little more awkward, Matt. Like,
I guess
their directs wouldn't end up like the direct we're going to talk about a little later on.
Most of them just end
up
bundled into one of the big threes events, and that's kind of how it works. Like, like it doesn't change much. And now you're sort of, you're looking at, like, they finally realized, and I think despite the fact that if I'd had time, I would have forged a neon sign that said I called it to put it behind me today. I think the pandemic did artificially accelerate this. Like, where, like, you were forced to do stuff.
Bandai Namco will probably still be there.
Yeah, maybe you're forced to do stuff, remotely and over the internet, and it didn't hurt anything. Mm-hmm. Like, Sony still sold more PS5s than they could manufacture.
Yeah,
like,
they still sell them as fast as they can make them.
We're never going to have an actual real E3 showing of Tears of the Kingdom, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. And you don't have to spend all this money. You don't have to fight for space. That's one of the big things is people, I see people that's like, well, they should all still get together and do all their, like, direct things all in the same, like, 4 days or the same week. Why? That's not good for anyone but us.
Yeah.
Like, that's you don't want to have to fight for mind share like that. You get the same viewing if you just wait a week or two or three or a month. Like,
is all this stuff going to Summer Game Fest? Is that what's happening?
Maybe. I don't think so.
You think all three are going to do their own thing?
Yeah. Because you want control over that narrative, and you don't have to pay for physical presence. You don't have to pay to go to LA. You don't have to pay to do any of that shit. You have to talk to Jeff Keighley. Like, there's all kinds of bonuses.
I think that they have an issue. It's like, what do we give to Jeff and what do we keep to ourselves?
Yeah, I think some stuff will definitely transfer over to Jeff for his thing, but like, the point of not going to E3 is not then to go to a different show. The point is to have control over your narrative, make your own in-house direct stuff, and not have to show it to anyone else, not have to have stuff leaking from like Teamsters dragging stuff into a show hall or whatever, or like for people leaking things early because maintenance people get to walk through the hall and see all these game things. Like, it's, which used to happen sometimes. It's that Final Fantasy something 13. I think the fact that that's how it got leaked that it was on Xbox,
right?
Was set up for the press conference.
Yeah.
So there's no downside to any of that. Pikmin,
Union workers leaked Pikmin.
Yeah. There's no downside to not going to E3 for these companies. Certainly not the big three. And it just took being forced into, look, executive people are never going to go for, big changes or, they're always going to stick with the thing that has always worked. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, you had to get everybody together in the same place to show all this stuff off to the people who are going to report on it and bring it to the masses. That was how it worked. That was why expos existed. It's why conventions existed in terms of kind of trade show things. It's what trade shows were for, in addition to the retail, the retail glad handing, which is still going to happen. No matter what happens to E3 show floor, all those meetings are still going to happen in the Marriott. That's that's the reason E3 existed in the first place. But they being forced into this remote thing and realizing there was no impact on the bottom line, as far as anyone can tell, unless you can look into an alternate universe where the PlayStation 5 sold millions more magically,
right?
Somehow,
then they could manufacture.
I don't think that's a thing, But no one's looking around saying the fact that we haven't had E3 since 2019 has been a real damaging thing for the industry. It hasn't.
It is crazy to think about all these things that'll go away, like the Nintendo line, and just all these little things from E3 that are just going to be gone now.
Yeah, but they're already gone. They've been gone for 3 years.
I mean, Nintendo's had its booth there.
But for 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, obviously not, because
not since 2019. I mean, it basically is gone.
Yeah, this is the last year. This is B-roll from 2019, as you can see from the bug there.
Yeah, we're coming up on. This is gonna be 4 years.
It's crazy to think back in the mid 90s when I first started going to E3, how it was just a dream of mine. It was like Mecca. Mm-hmm. For someone who really loved games. It's that pilgrimage that you made, and now in 25 years later, it's irrelevant.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty insane.
It happens.
It does. Not that often is something this big, though. I mean, there's lots of crazy conventions that have stayed strong or got bigger as time has gone on in the last 25 years.
Yeah, but this isn't a convention. It's a trade show.
Yeah. It was supposed to be.
E3, what we think of as E3 was an accident.
Yeah.
It was the spectacle that kind of grew out of control like a tumor, while this actual thing was happening.
Watching this footage.
Which is it couldn't be better B-roll for what I'm talking about right now.
I know, it's perfect.
This is not something that happens at dental hardware conventions, which often is a thing that happens the week bore E3, by the way. A dental technology convention happens a lot.
Do you think 2014, when they started letting the fans in, was the beginning of the end?
No, I think that was a symptom. I think that was the writing on the wall to some degree.
That was them trying to steer away from the iceberg.
No, they realized they had to change or die, and that was not a change that was going to matter enough because other things had already kind of filled that niche already. And I don't think the civilian experience at E3 has ever been good enough to warrant the cost of coming here.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to tell someone, spend $3,000 and come and stand in line all day.
Yeah, because you forget, it's not just the ticket; it's the plane fare and the hotel and staying downtown.
All the Ubers to get to and from every day. It adds up, man.
Because that's the other thing is you can either stay in downtown, which is a giant concrete brick of horror or again just bleh. It's boring and it's not interesting and it's loud and weird. Or you can stay in a nice part of LA, but then you're going to spend all this money on Uber fare.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is not cheap anymore.
It's just as expensive as cabs.
Back in the day, back in the day, 10 years
5 years ago,
in the old, back in the 2010s, when it was time for E3, I just get in an Uber, spend $5 to go downtown.
Yeah, not anymore.
And now it costs just as much as it would cost to park down there.
The cab is the same.
Yeah.
It used to be cheaper than cabs.
Well, at this point, I just drive because I'm going to pay $30 to park, or I'm going to pay $30 for an Uber, and I'd rather my own car.
So my guess is the ESA makes it much easier to get into E3 as a journalist. Remember back in 2019, they were being crazy about it and had these crazy restrictions and were not letting a lot of people in who should have been in. My guess is that won't happen this year. They're going to be begging for attendees.
Yeah, my guess is they're going to have to start calling people.
Yeah.
It's are you coming this year? It's
yeah. I mean, I'm going to go.
Maybe.
I'll go. I mean, I'm definitely going to go. If only to see it die.
Yeah.
just to say I was there, because I was in Atlanta. That's the first one that I went to before it really became E3. And that was kind of the beginning of E3, and so I want to bookend it. I want to be there for the beginning and the end.
I gotta know. Usually, a lot of times I've gone where just like, hooking up with IGN or some other like company that I do like freelance stuff for. Sometimes I don't know if they're gonna have a big enough presence to warrant freelancers at this point. I mean, they might not have big enough staffs.
I mean, that's the other thing too, is that the big outlets right now are like, should we go? We're having our booth built already. Like all that stuff is already in motion. I don't know.
Well, at least GameSpot doesn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to have the fishbowl this year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There's that's all kind of coming apart.
It is.
Like there's no there anymore.
Yep.
And nobody really gets.
It may be too late. They may have sponsors lined up already for it, and they may just have to just trudge forward.
I mean, yeah, I think you have contracts to honor, and you're just going to have to go through it. But I would not be surprised if this never happens again.
Yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, that's one piece of housekeeping, and then there's another one, and it may or may not be related. We also got word this week that Sony is cutting production of PlayStation VR 2 due to a lack of pre-orders. So we spoke earlier about how...
Yeah, here's my complete lack of surprise.
Yeah. I mean, so we spoke a minute ago about how, not going to E3 didn't hurt PlayStation 5. They can't make enough. People are buying them as soon as they make them. Was PlayStation VR 2 perhaps something that could have got a boost from being at something like E3 because of the nature of VR?
No.
You have to try it in person. You need to put the helmet on. No?
VR is VR. We know what it is. It's a known quantity. Just no one wants the high-end stuff like this. Like it's the price is killing this thing.
Yeah.
Not the tech. Not that people don't know what VR is. It's the price. No one wants to pay $500 for this thing. Most of the people that were into VR in the first place already got burned for multi-$100 units and learned their lesson.
I did.
That's what's happening here.
I definitely did.
Look, man, I pre-ordered one. I don't want to. The only reason I pre-ordered is so we can talk about it on the show. If we weren't doing this show, I would never touch this thing.
Hopefully you're pleasantly surprised by it.
I will not be. I mean, I'm sure the tech is great. I'm sure I'll be like, oh, this is amazing tech. It's too bad they're never going to fucking do anything with it.
Too bad there's not enough games to support it.
And I will write it off as a business expense, and that'll be the end of it, and I'll have to figure a fucking drawer to it ends up in.
Yep. So right now,
sell my first
PlayStation VR 2 is not.
We give away my original PSVR as like a prize or something. I don't think I need that anymore.
I do wonder too. I don't need it either. Mine's just been collecting dust for years now. I do wonder too if this will convince some people who pre-ordered it to cancel their pre-order.
Maybe.
Because they're like,
also,
this thing's dead in the water.
Also, to answer Swanlund, who says, would you care about this if it could be used on your PC? A little. That would help. But apparently, whatever the thing is that prevents you from doing that is complex enough that people are like... that several people that have started to kind of look into the cracking and getting to work on PC say it could be years.
Yeah. And it's always weird and jimmied. It never works the way it's supposed to once they figure out how to get it to work. Because they did the same thing. They jailbroke PlayStation VR 1. But you looked into it and it was like, it's more hassle than it's worth.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, this one will be a little easy. If you could get this to work, it'd be less of a hassle because it doesn't require the PS camera and stuff like that. I mean,
that's true.
Who was it that one of the journalists put up like the diagram of how you have to set up the PSVR 1 with the breakout box? And it was they're like, can you believe we actually did this? And
we did it.
It was so weird.
It's true, man.
So many wires.
This may just be dead in the water. But we told him again, Matt. Here's another case where they should have just called the consulting firm us, and we could have told them this is a terrible idea. If they'd have told us what the price was, we'd have just told them just don't even bother. There's obvious thing. I get that at some point you have to try to take risks here and there, but just another case where it was just obvious to almost everybody that this was not a good idea, and here we are. So it'll be interesting to see how this first year plays out.
I think this was just they were so committed and they had so much money in R&D on this thing, on VR in general, but also I think there was just no way. They had to do this. There's an element of like we were talking about executive wing not being very open to change and open to pivoting and all that stuff. That's a rarity in that level of corporate behavior. To some degree, you have to let this thing come out and fail to prove to the brass that this is a dead end.
Yeah,
like you have to let them make this mistake.
Expensive lesson, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, but I mean,
I now have doubts that they'll sell the 2 million before the end of the year.
Same reason Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League had to come out. You had to let Warner Brothers learn that there's not enough people in that weirdo cult to support a $100 million film. Like, you have to let these companies fail.
Yeah. Sneaky's asking, which is worse, PlayStation VR or Kinect? I'd say PlayStation VR, because it was way more expensive. At least Kinect just came with the console. The last one did.
I mean, PlayStation VR is better if you're going to make me play one of them.
I'd rather play
PlayStation VR.
Yeah. Even if I get sick, it's still better tech.
Yeah, Kinect never had any good games.
Yeah, at all.
I appreciate the Han Solo dance number in the Star Wars game, but like other than that, there's not a whole lot to recommend it.
Yep. So PlayStation...
Maybe if Milo had come out.
So PlayStation VR 2 is in trouble. Another smaller story. GoldenEye. Surprise launch this week, Matt. I went back and gave it a whirl, and my oh my.
That game needs some patching.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about playing GoldenEye in 2023. It is most definitely a dinosaur, I guess is the best way I could put it. It was not as much fun as I remembered it. And then I was
it was, even at the time, it was more like, well, at least it was a first-person shooter that wasn't horrible on a console. Like, I very, very vividly remember PC shooter players being like, this is the thing you're all freaking out about.
I was playing Tribes at the time already,
too. It was like, you had Tribes, you had Marathon, you had Doom, you had Quake. Like, it was already... the shooter world was ahead of this.
On PC. But if you were a console gamer, this blew your effing mind.
Quite literally the only game in town.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to play multiplayer.
Yeah. And I was really disappointed to find out there's no online multiplayer.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to play the campaign. I only captured this footage because I'm like, well, hell, I downloaded it. I might as well capture some GoldenEye. Well, I downloaded it to play multiplayer online. I just assumed that would be part of it, and it's not.
No. I mean, there's the splits. It's the original game. There's split screen multiplayer.
You can play split screen, and that's it.
If you wanted to spend $320 on controllers.
Yeah, I mean, this just feels like they did this to just satisfy the fans who had been asking for it forever.
It's a nice thing to make people, because like, oh, there's a lot of weird shit in it. Like, the controls are very off, even for what you expect it to be. They fucked up the music. I think on both definitely on the Switch, but I think on both platforms. There's a missing instrument track.
Oh, really? Because it's MIDI. That's probably why. Yeah, the original sound was MIDI.
There's a missing instrument track in the most obvious place you can hear it is in the pause music, which everybody knows.
Yeah.
It's that way more, goes way harder than it needs to. Pause music, like, of all time.
It's great though.
But there's you know this in the pause music, periodically you get this like kind of distorted, slowed down snare drum sound.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
That's gone.
Oh, really?
That's not in
that.
this.
Interesting.
It's missing. So I don't know what happened there. I assume that was just an oversight, and there aren't people who like have just that song burned into their brain working on this.
I finished this mission and I was good. I didn't even play the second one. And I finished this mission in like 90 seconds.
I've seen that a lot on Twitter and stuff, where people are like, yep, I went through the dam and I got the shortest. I went through the dam, I did the shortest time, I unlocked the thing, I said, still got it, and I deleted the save. Deleted the install. Like, that was all I needed.
Yep. So GoldenEye came out, I would say, with a whimper, and then other people were complaining about bugs. I didn't even play it enough to know if there were bugs or any of the other problems, but yeah. So GoldenEye, a big flop after literally, it feels like 2 years of like anticipation.
Well, and also the people are disappointed on Xbox, at least, that it's literally the original game and not the kind of the remake update that they had that got canceled. Yeah, that looked a lot better.
It's just the same game in higher resolution.
It's the N64 game, like high res. Yeah.
Some of those textures, yikes.
Yeah, I mean, that was
those were the days.
I mean, even then, some of that did not look great.
Well, if you were PC gaming anyway. Again, for consoles, I thought it.
I mean, it still looked awful. Like like the faces up close and stuff. I don't care if they're the best you had at the time. They still look terrible.
Yep. Well, you can see right there.
There's David Doak. I killed that man so many times.
Poor guy. Yep. So anyway, GoldenEye ended up being a disappointment. Ultimately, you think they're going to patch it up and satisfy the people who are complaining about it right now, or why even bother?
I don't know about I mean, maybe. I don't think there's no money in it for anybody.
Yeah.
Like.
It was just a fan service thing.
The chat's saying that Switch has online multiplayer with friends only.
No, it does.
But I don't think Xbox does.
It doesn't. Xbox definitely doesn't. That's what I played it on. That's what I captured it on. I just went and downloaded it from Game Pass. It was like the hot new game on Game Pass or whatever. And then finally, another smaller story that just broke. Xbox is increasing the price of Xbox Series consoles in Japan by $38 beginning on February 17th. Happy Valentine's Day from Xbox. This would matter if it was the U.S. We're very lucky in the U.S. that we've dodged both of these price increases for both consoles. That for whatever reason we're the golden child and they'll just keep losing the money in the United States. We're lucky. In Japan, does it really matter if nobody's buying the Xbox Series consoles there anyway?
No, it's kind of this is a tree falling in a forest with no one around, really.
Right. This is like Xbox saying, if we're going to do terrible in Japan, we might as well not lose money on each console sold. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, just again, shows you the cost of components and supply chain and all that stuff. Still hurting the bottom line here. I'd really hoped by this year that all that stuff would really clear up and there would be no rationale and maybe they would drop the price of PlayStation 5 back down to what it was before in these other territories. I don't know what's going to happen now. I don't know, people. It's kind of crazy. But again, really a non-story for Xbox because Xbox is just a non-story in Japan in general. So there you go. That's the housekeeping. I told you there's a lot of housekeeping to get to before episode 328. Before we get going, we want to thank our sponsor, LS Cream. And Matt, you're actually correct in that lscream.com is not their main website. lscream.com, if you go there, and you can, it's just a store locator. But their actual website where you can go and you can learn about the brand is creamls.com. You can go there, they tell the story. The crazy part I didn't realize about LS Cream is that it is an ancestral recipe from his
grandmother
from Haiti, which is really cool.
He told us that.
Yeah, but I had completely forgotten about it, and he reminded me of it, and he wanted me to mention it to you guys. So this recipe goes way back. It wasn't just this idea that he came up with. It's like, I'll make something like Bailey's. It is something that his grandmother made years and years ago.
No, this was everyone should have grandma's cream liqueur.
Yeah, which is pretty awesome.
And I believe he was correct.
Yeah. And as I said, he's a sifter. He's a gamer. So go support at creamls.com. You can go there. There's a store locator. You can buy it everywhere. It's at Bevmo, Total Wine, Cappy's in Boston. But also use the store locator because there are places where you can buy it pretty much everywhere. Even if you're in a little town or whatever, there's probably a location that will sell it if you just go to the store locator. So anyway, thanks again to LS Cream for sponsoring GameFace. And with that, it's time to get on with GameFace 328. Actually, let's go to chat real quick. We talked about a lot of stuff right there. And they probably have some things that they want to say about it. Andy T. Monahan, you think Microsoft not being able to use their own remake that use the original source code was part of the contracts agreements beyond only being a specific digital release? Maybe?
Could have been. Like Nintendo might have wanted parity on that.
Shneaky says that Xbox wasn't allowed to do anything to it. So that's why I played the crappy version.
Yeah, well, the Xbox One has better controls. But the Switch, this chat said it too. That like the reason the Switch version has online play is because all the N64 games have online play. That's part of the wrapper.
Oh, got ya. Okay. JJ Forcebreaker, VR is tempting, but I won't plan to spend that much money until I have a beefy PC and a dedicated room with space. Yeah, you need it. For me, doing a sitting version is not worth it in the grand scheme of things, even more so in this economy. I agree. We said this all along, that the fact that this headset is wired is a huge detriment. That's not where VR is going. VR is going to a wireless...
Well, he's not talking about wired there.
Yeah, he said sitting down. For me, doing a sitting version is not worth it.
Yeah, but you don't sit when you do these games, necessarily.
I mean, I do. If I got a cord...
No.
Really? I'm not going to be flailing around with a cord.
I've never owned a wireless VR headset, and I played tons of stuff standing up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I never did. I always played sitting down.
All the Vive stuff has been standing up. Like you can't play.
All I have was PlayStation VR.
You can't play. Well, yeah, I mean, PlayStation VR definitely punted on that because not just because, I mean, look, this thing at least only has one wire. PlayStation VR was like a giant rat's nest with a breakout box and this cord to this and that cord to that, and then you had a separate cord for the headphones and a separate cord for the. It was ridiculous. But like the Vive has a giant cord coming out the back of it. But almost all the games I played for that were all stand up. Like the advantage of the Vive, and I mean, obviously you had to drill holes in the wall to put the sensors up, but like one of the big downfalls of PlayStation VR in that regard is you had to be facing the camera. Like, I mean, with Vive, I used to play it with my back to the PC, which gave me a lot more room.
You always had to look at the TV screen. That's another reason why I sat down with PlayStation VR.
Well,
because if you moved around, it stopped working well.
Right. Well, because, I mean, I guess theoretically you could, like, I guess you could jimmy up an extension cord for the camera and put it on the other side of the room and face away from the TV. But, like, the camera was the sinker there. Like, it's you know, it wasn't just that the PlayStation VR was wired. It was that it was tethered to this stupid camera or else it couldn't work.
Yeah.
This one at least doesn't have that problem. You could theoretically, if you have more room behind your couch or something, you could theoretically play it that way. But, like, I don't know. Like the space thing is a real issue. Like, in my old apartment, I weirdly had more space for this than I do now in the room I have my PC in. Because,
that is weird. Well,
because the room I have my PC in is a fairly small office, and the room I had my PC in the apartment was an open plan apartment.
It was the big living room area.
Living room. Like, I had tons of space for that.
Yeah.
And now I don't. Like, I'd have to move the PC out into the... I mean, I guess theoretically I could use my old PC as a VR thing, but it's also not really strong enough to do that anymore.
Yep. Hey, Rock and Roll 458. Thanks for joining GameFace and chatting for the first time. We appreciate it. Let's see if you guys got any Twitch Prime in here before the show got started. Rock and Roll 458. Thank you for subscribing at Tier 1. That's awesome, man. 2 months. That's awesome. People sharing condolences. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Don Lionheart, thank you for Twitch Prime. Ptor91, thank you for Twitch Prime. Who else got in here? I thought I saw at least one other one. Someone asked, I think El Guapo asked, what will replace E3? What convention will replace E3 now?
Nothing.
PAX? Nothing?
There's no reason to replace it. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean...
Morton Joe, thank you.
You're not going to move... You know, they're just going to do directs. That's it.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to do them more spread out. Like,
we just saw Xbox's first one.
I mean,
we're going to talk about it in a minute.
Keely's going to try with the Summer Games Fest thing.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the same thing. It's just going to be, you know, an online thing, more or less.
Yeah.
No, nothing will replace it.
Okay. Contano, thank you for Twitch Prime. Liz David, thank you for gifting Tier 1 subs to our live audience here on the stream. And I think that might be it. The J-Bone29. Sony stated they haven't cut production numbers, which is different than sales forecasts that Bloomberg reported. I'm going to trust Bloomberg. I don't know about you, Matt.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they haven't cut production numbers because those orders are already in the factory. If this thing's coming out as soon as it is, you're already making those things now.
They may have just cut future.
They are probably going to just have them sit in a warehouse in China rather than ship them here to sit in a warehouse.
Yeah,
is all that is. Like that's. Yeah. They're still going to have 2 million units. They're just not going to like spend the money to ship them where they were going to go originally until they have to.
Yep.
If they ever have to. Because it's going to be cheaper to liquidate a bunch of stuff that's sitting in the warehouse near the factory location than if you spent the money to ship them.
It's true. Gunheads, welcome to chat, man. Thanks for getting your first time into our chat. Welcome to the crew. What else we got in here? Okay, I think that's it. I think we're ready to get the show going proper. And we're going to kick things off with easily the biggest game release of the week, and that is the Dead Space remake. So I do have some B-roll of the old Dead Space loaded up here, and eventually I'll show you.
I forgot to. I was going to get a thing. Oh, maybe I'll go get it while you're talking.
Get what thing?
A Dead Space thing.
Oh, go get it. I can blather for a couple minutes.
You babble for a bit.
Yeah. And
also, I should note that there is apparently a delivery coming at some point I'm going to have to sign for. So I'm going to have to step away another time.
I'm good at filling in.
Luna's going to come in.
Yep. So the Dead Space remake came out. It is actually, it's not a remake. It is a remaster. There are some slight tweaks to the game from when it came out before, back in 2008. That's the crazy part, people. This game is now 15 years old. 15 years old. If you need something to make you feel old, even if you're not that old, this will definitely do it. Now, this is a pretty faithful recreation of the original game. Again, there are a couple things that they've changed we'll get to in a little bit. But for the most part, this is just Dead Space in a much higher resolution. Everything has been redone. They completely rebuilt the game from the ground up as far as redoing all the textures, rebuilding all the models, rebuilding the level design. And one thing I will say that is the same but also different in this updated version of Dead Space is the tram. So the tram before was the tram was a scam in Dead Space before. You'd get on it and it was basically, it would load and it would hide loading from one area of the game to another. The way it works now though, you get on the tram, there's no loading. It literally is just taking you to another part of the level. But the other thing I would say too is the tram system to me exposed just how small the game world is. Now you're seeing right here, the whole game takes place on a massive ship called the USG Ishimura. It's a gigantic ship, but in the scheme of things, the grand scheme of things, it's a small world. And you start to realize it really quickly. I was leading off by talking about one of the changes, which is the tram system. How it used to be a way to hide loading one section of the ship to another. Now, the ship is just there, and you actually get in the tram, and it just takes you to another part of the ship.
Yeah, I mean...
And it also exposed that the ship isn't that big. Like, the game world for Dead Space is puny compared to most modern games.
Yeah, well, it's a bunch of corridors, and to be fair, ships wouldn't be that big. I mean, you don't want a lot of wasted space on a spaceship.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's still a more interesting location most of the time than Callisto Protocol.
Yep. It is, absolutely. So some of you guys may have never played this before because you're not as old as Matt and I, and the game's now 15 years old. So if you haven't, the plot is basically about a starship engineer named Isaac Clarke.
Who's very chatty now.
Yeah, who never spoke before.
He did not speak. Did you even see his face?
Yes.
Before?
In this? No, and before you never did.
No. He was like a mystery man.
Now you can spin the camera around, you can see him while he talks.
You saw his face, I think, at the very end in the original. Like, he took his helmet off. Because there is a model of his face from the first game.
Oh, there is?
But I think it's at the very, very end. Maybe even if you only get a good ending, he takes the helmet off.
Interesting.
But he doesn't talk at all in the original.
And he does in this one. A lot, actually.
Yeah.
He's a little chatterbox.
Which is, again, why it's a remake, not a remake, because they did remake the game from the ground up.
Yeah.
But I think John Carpenter, of all people, might have cracked the question on this week, because he's playing this, and he called it the refurbishment of Dead Space.
Okay.
And I'm like,
I can get on board with that.
Like, yeah, a refurb as like the midpoint between a baseline remaster where we just up-res the thing, and a remake where we completely change everything like Resident Evil. Yeah, a refurb.
Yeah.
I can kind of get behind that.
Me too. I'd agree with that.
Well done, John Carpenter.
Yeah. So you play as Isaac, who now is much more chatty than he was before.
Which is good. Like, it was weird before.
Yeah.
It was weird.
They're trying to do the Metroid thing, I believe.
They're doing the Metroid. It was very Metroid Prime inspired.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's how I felt anyway back in the day. But you are a part...
I think I remember them saying that was an influence.
Yeah.
I think I remember Metroid talk.
But you're a part of a salvage crew, and you are responding to a distress signal, which was sent out from the USG Ishimura. And you get there,
it's conveniently where Isaac's girlfriend is.
Yeah, you're also on kind of a quest to save your girlfriend. And you get there, and you see that things aren't the way you thought they were going to be. The Ishimura has been damaged. You cannot dock properly. You kind of crash land into the dock, and... You get off the ship, you start walking around, you realize that the ship has been taken over by these crazy creatures called necromorphs. And the mystery begins. You lose a good chunk of your crew right off the bat, and then it's just you and a sprinkling, I don't want to spoil too much, of your crew on a mission to ultimately save your girlfriend and really just to get home. That becomes the goal, really, once they realize...
Yeah, really, you just got to get off the ship.
Yeah, how terrible things have become once they get on the ship.
It becomes clear pretty early on that, like, this is not salvageable.
Yep.
Like, you just got to get out of there.
And then you start to realize that the outbreak on the ship wasn't just an accident. And again, I don't want to spoil too much, but there's reasons for why this has happened on the ship. Maybe a case of space madness for some.
Space madness.
Exactly. So there's some mysteries to uncover, but it is made like a Metroidvania. It's a labyrinthine level design where you end up returning to a lot of areas on the ship. When you're first starting the game, there's a lot of doors that you come across that you can't get into until you've reached, and this is also a new addition to this, there's like a security clearance level now in this game to get in some of these doors. Now, those rooms were all added to the level design. They weren't a part of the original game. So there's these doors now in the game where as you play through, you get new security access levels. And as you get to each one, you can then enter those rooms. And I'll say this, Matt, there's nothing all that valuable inside those rooms. Like, when I got into my first one, I was like, woohoo, I'm going to hit the mother load. And I went in there, and there was, like, 6 bullets for, like, one of my guns. I was like, okay, I guess you added this just for these 6 bullets. But that's also something. I don't know why they added that to the game.
I think probably just to have a little more reward when you have to backtrack.
No, maybe.
I think that's the idea with that.
That's probably a good, yeah. It probably was a good idea because it does too, and it also reminds you that, oh yeah, this door was here, and now I come back, and now I can get in there. It does kind of help with the feeling of progression through the game.
You're not just running through empty stuff you've already done. I think that's the idea behind it. I don't know how successful that is, but I think that's what that's there for.
And then one of the coolest things about Dead Space, both versions, is that most of your weapons are not really weapons. They're tools that have been repurposed as weapons. For example, the plasma cutter that you use, where you can change the orientation so it cuts vertically or horizontally. That's not really a weapon. It was used for other purposes, but now that you're here and you're stranded, you don't have weapons to fight these guys. You're kind of repurposing.
And he's an engineer, so that's what they do.
And there's a weapons bench where you can go to, and you can improve all the armaments. There's another place you can go where you can improve his suits. I don't know what version you were playing, Matt, but I started the game with 8 different suits. I think EA sent me a special version or something.
I was playing on Xbox, and I had a bunch of different... But the interesting thing, the suits in the original that you could get as bonuses and stuff and unlocks, both for finishing the game and for pre-ordering or extra expansion packs. A lot of them had different stats. A lot of them were basically cheating. Mm-hmm. That's all the different suits in this game are just cosmetic.
They're all the same. Yeah, it's just for looks. Yeah. So there's the plasma cutter, which you've seen a lot of combat with that in this footage right now. There's another weapon called the pulse rifle, and the rifle part of that kind of sucks, in all honesty, Matt. Mm-hmm. But the alt fire for that are proximity grenades. And what I've found is that is one of the best weapons that you can use to go through this entire game.
Yeah, if you really the proximity grenade, alt fire, and the plasma cutter are all you need. The plasma cutter is the best weapon in the game.
It is. And I upgrade that first almost every time. And I generally only upgrade every other weapon in damage. And that's it. Mm-hmm. I don't really go down the tree. And there are trees for both of these. You get to the weapons bench, and they're not crazy long. Each weapon probably has 18 to 20
It's more
upgrades.
It is interesting that you get to pick which end of the tree you come at it from.
Yep.
So that's cool.
Also, you eventually uncover things that will reveal new branches of the tree. Meaning it'll show you, because when you first start using a tree, it doesn't tell you what each node is. You don't know if it's for damage or if it's for reload speed or if it gives you more weapons. As you start going through the tree, it starts revealing that stuff. There are pickups that you can get that you find out in the world, and you bring them back, and then that will reveal parts of the tree. So it can tell you, if you want to go damage route, this is the way you need to go on the tree to make sure you hit as many damage upgrades as possible, which I thought was a pretty cool idea. So there's that. There's the pulse rifle. There's a ripper, which shoots saw blades. But what I've used it for is I just load it up and leave the saw blade in front of me and then just run into and just cut them in half.
Yeah, it has a bit of an undocumented feature there.
Yeah, that's what I use it for. It's great for crowd control. There's a force gun, which is weird because it was a gun from Dead Space 2 that they ended up putting in here. So you're seeing there's also a jetpack that you get in this game that also was from Dead Space 2, maybe 3.
I remember that from 3. It might have been in 2.
I can't quite remember. But there's a whole scene now with that where you use the jetpack outside to
it's pretty different, really.
Parts of it, yeah.
It's certainly more so than your average update.
Yep.
And some of that I think is just bringing in the force gun. It's just I got the impression to some degree that it was you're dealing.
People are saying Force Gun was in the original. Actually,
I don't remember the Force Gun.
I don't either.
And I played that game 3 times.
Yeah, I don't remember that weapon at all. But there's chat saying that that's so. There is a flamethrower as well. There's a lot of weapons actually, but as you said, I just pretty much use the plasma cutter. Mm-hmm. And again, you change the orientation of that because a big part of defeating the enemies in this is crowd control, and so you take their legs out. And that doesn't stop them, it just slows them down. So it's a little bit like Eternal Darkness. And I never picked up on this when I played it the first time. But it's a lot like Eternal Darkness. You go into a room, there's a ton of enemies. If you just try to fight them, you're probably going to die. So you incapacitate them. And then you take them out one by one. So in Eternal Darkness, you would decapitate the enemies. They'd walk around aimlessly until you finished them off. And Unless. And this...
The green ones can still see you.
Right.
They're magic.
Yeah. This one,
blue.
you take out their legs, and then they have to crawl around. And they're still dangerous when they're crawling around, but they're much easier to handle.
Yeah, unless you run into ones that don't have legs.
Right. And they just suck.
Yeah.
That's when you use the vertical orientation.
That's what the vertical is for.
Yeah.
To cut the arm off.
And that's the strategy that goes into every combat skirmish that you get into in Dead Space. That is kind of
I also appreciate the remake for really using the darkness proper. As you can see in the footage here, it's dark. Like, you can't see unless you turn that flashlight on, which slows you down, which forces you into a situation where you're in a kind of a disadvantage speed-wise.
Yep.
And they use that pretty well in a way that, to me, it seems like a lot of horror games are afraid to do now.
Yeah.
Like, they're too afraid.
This game is really dark.
Yeah.
Like, it may be hard to see for you guys on the stream.
But it's supposed to be that dark. Like, if you play it, like, with the HDR settings done right, like, it's not like that it's so dark you lose the detail. It's so dark because it's supposed to be dark.
Yeah.
So well done on that. I think they did a very good job on that in an era where, especially on Xbox, where you continually have crushed blacks levels and stuff, and Xbox is by far the worst in terms of HDR setting problems of the two consoles that do that.
And this is on PlayStation 5, by the way.
Yeah, mine is on Xbox, and I didn't see much of that. I thought it was way better than your average Xbox game.
Yep, and then you get a couple
I didn't play it on PC because one of the things I have learned is that don't buy new games on PC because none of them work at launch. Like this thing's broken too. It's got all these weird stuttery hitches things. And
really?
Stuff. So I'll pick these up as they come out, as they get fixed and drop in price, I guess. Because originally I'm like, I'll get everything on PC because it's going to look amazing on the new card, but like everything that comes out, like all the initial reports from like Digital Foundry, was like, yeah, this thing's kind of broken. Like, better wait for a patch. I'm just like, well, I don't want to wait for a patch, so I'll just get the console version, like, because I know that's going to work right, and so it does.
Totally realize that the B-roll may be hard for you guys to see, but this is just the game. There was nothing I could do to make the B-roll easier to view.
You're losing some detail here because of the resolution we use and because of the capture and stuff. But like, if you're looking at this on an actual 4K TV, like, it doesn't look oppressively black. It looks like
you can pick up details.
You can definitely see what you're supposed to be looking at, and it's not like confused. Because if you like this, like looking at this footage is a little bit of like, this would be confusing to play because I can't see anything. It's not like that when you actually play the game on a 4K TV.
Yep. And then you get two kind of supernatural powers, or a couple supernatural powers. You get kinesis, which lets you pick up objects and move them around, and that's mostly just used for puzzle stuff. Although you can pick up stuff and throw it. You can use it for combat if you want to. It's not
any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah, touche. And then the other thing,
go back to the 1800s and show somebody this phone.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get stasis as well, which just basically is like a freeze. And I'll be honest with you, Matt, once you start using stasis, this game becomes a cakewalk.
Well, except that you have very limited usage.
Yeah.
You start with only 2 shots. Basically.
But there's a lot of pickups that you can get throughout the game. There's lots of stations that you can go to.
Eventually, when you first get stasis, you get a lot of recharge stations because they have you solve some puzzles with it.
Right.
And then after that, you don't see another stasis recharge center until you basically get to the next area.
But I had gotten so many that I had them in my inventory. And anytime I needed one, I just went to the box and just grabbed one out of there. Like, any major skirmish, if you're having problems or struggles, if you're boss fights or whatever, stasis. Like, they teach it to you with one of the first boss fights. They're like, yeah, freeze this guy, and then strafe around behind him and shoot him in the back. And once you do that, you're like, I can do that with every enemy. Like,
except you run out of stasis too fast to do that with everybody.
Well, you don't need to waste it on, like, the rank and file enemies. But any of the tougher enemies in the game, like, that's how you beat them. And it almost takes a lot of the
I did early on when, like, they were coming at you from both sides of a catwalk. And I was like, you stay still.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't, like, freezing him to, like, shoot him. I was like, you stay there so I can kill this other guy and not worry about your ass.
A big part of this game is crowd control. I mean, managing the mob. Figuring out which ones are going to come faster, and they are unpredictable. Some of them seem like they're slow, and they just start sprinting at you, like out of nowhere. And it does cause some panic here and there, for sure.
Yeah, one thing I'm annoyed they didn't change is one of the things that I always disliked about the original game was that it gives itself away all the time, because if there's a necromorph in the room with you, music's playing.
Yeah.
Like, scary music starts playing. I'm like, well, I guess somebody's in here, and like, And then they pop out, and you're like, "Yep, I know. You brought your orchestra with you. I'm aware." And like they did that in this one too, which I think just kills the tension.
Yeah,
it just makes it silly. Like it's like a fucking Warner Brothers cartoon. It's 5 frames off of like a sneaking character in an old cartoon going do 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 do. I just think it makes it comedic.
Well, I've been playing this with Dolby Atmos, and it's mind-blowingly awesome.
Oh yeah, the sound is very, very
it's
good.
It's really awesome.
Like presentationally, this thing is pristine.
You walk into a room, and like I don't know if you guys have used Dolby Atmos, but it can simulate height, and it is so good at it. Like I walk into rooms, and I can hear the necromorphs walking on the floor above me, and I have no speakers up on my ceiling. It's Dolby Atmos. I don't know how they do it. It's like witchcraft, Matt. But it is amazing in this game. You're right, though. They do kind of, the music will start playing and when you know they're in the room. But if you walk in, they're not in the room, you can still hear them shuffling around like above you, to the right, to the left, behind you sometimes. It's impactful. So I thought the audio in this was really, really good.
Yeah, I think, on a raw tech level, Callisto Protocol has better graphics.
Oh, yeah.
But presentationally, this thing is head and shoulders above that game.
I'll say this. I'm a little disappointed in the graphics of this game. It looks good, but
looks good.
Demon Souls looks better, and that's from 2020.
Yeah. But also, Demon Souls has a lot more to work with.
I guess. I don't know. Like, there were a couple moments in this.
You can only make big corridors look so good.
Yeah.
It's about as good as this can look.
Well, this is very repetitive. Like, everything is gray and brown and red and dreary.
I still think it's more attractive than Callisto Protocol was. I don't have in terms of, like, just aesthetics. I can't quite, maybe it's the floating, like, the hologram AR stuff, like, mixes it up a little bit. Like, maybe it looks more like a place people would actually live in places. But
the clutter is insane.
Oh, yeah.
Every room is just filled with crap, all rendered very well. Don't get me wrong, it's leaps and bounds better than the original Dead Space. And again, I'll show you a little bit of B-roll of that here in a second.
Definitely better than the 15-year-old game,
Yeah, it's a huge leap, but this is a next-gen only game. Like, this did not come out for PS4 and Xbox One. To me, my standards are a little higher than what we get here. Because the other thing, too, Matt, is that, like, you never are seeing a vista here. All you're seeing are these little, tight, claustrophobic rooms. Like, they should be able to make this game look freaking mind-blowing. Because you never have to draw that many polys out on the horizon. So I was a little disappointed in the visuals.
I think they're putting more of the budget of that towards the necromorphs are very complicated riggings.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a lot of them, and they dissolve into all kinds of particles.
Like, every once in a while,
there is a lot happening here.
There is, yeah. Like, for instance, there was one time...
Look at it chug there a little bit.
It did chug,
when you did that. I think they're pushing this about as far as they can go. And again, I do think this is Frostbite. So there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, apparently.
Like, everyone desperately waiting for EA to fully cross back over to Unreal.
That would be nice. That would be really nice.
I also, like, I think if this is Frostbite 2, like, this is very impressive that they got this thing to do this. It's really,
if it's Frostbite, you mean? Yeah.
Like, it
would be the best looking Frostbite.
You are absolutely doing the best you can with the tools you were forced to use at that point. I'm not going to...
Yeah, I don't know what EA's thinking with that engine.
They just won't let... that goes back to the whole corporate people will not budge on stupid things. Like, it's like how when Amazon did their, did their game studio stupid thing that lasted, like a year?
Yeah.
The developers at one point apparently got together and were like, we don't want to use Lumberyard. And it's terrible.
Yeah, that was their in-house engine.
And they wouldn't let them change.
Yeah.
Like, there's like, nope, that's what we got.
People are confirming it's Frostbite in the chat. Yeah.
This is very impressive work for Frostbite.
Yeah. But it would take a game like this, where each room is like the size of your living room.
Yeah, but also, like, it doesn't, like, moving him around doesn't feel weightless and weird. And,
that's true.
It doesn't feel like the walls are made of paper. Like,
although the enemies feel like they're still made of paper. Like, you run through enemies and they bounce around like paper mache.
Oh yeah, they
didn't remove that from. But
you know what?
OG
like
game.
that happens in Cyberpunk on my computer too. Like every once in a while, like, constantly people are walking through boxes and they just explode into confetti. And so I was like, physics for random objects and dead bodies are I'm thinking there's a mod for Cyberpunk where it basically fixes the ragdoll physics on dead bodies, and I'm getting to the point where I might actually use that because I've seen people twisted into very strange shapes.
Huh.
even on that high-end hardware.
Interesting.
It's a very hard thing to balance, and it's also just not worth.
Yeah,
it's not worth it. Like, because what's the alternative? Like having to fucking skirt your way around a dead necromorph? Like, that's not fun.
Yeah,
like, I'm happy with them to bounce around.
It's weird. It scares me sometimes though, because the other thing we haven't talked about yet.
Sometimes the big blade arm will flip over like that,
and you think you're being attacked because the monster closets in this game are insane. Mm-hmm. You'll see in this B-roll in a minute. Like, there's a moment where I'm walking down a hallway. There's nothing. Next thing I know, I'm just attacked from behind, and I spin around, and I don't have no idea where that guy came from. This happens over.
I will say,
having
poked around on things like that because that happened. There is always a place they come from.
Yeah, there's like these little panels that'll be broken
they pop out of. There's little holes in the ceiling that like they don't spawn them out of nowhere.
There's a boss that spawns out of nowhere. You're in a room, and he drops down from the ceiling, and after the cutscene's over, you look up on the ceiling. There is no hole there. So have made as long mistakes have been made.
But at least they showed you him drop down.
Right.
I'm talking about cheating from behind.
The monster closet stuff.
Like that's not a thing.
It's really bad though. Like this is probably
that's Dead Space.
It is, but I'm just telling people. Some people have never played Dead Space. It is the worst monster closets you've ever experienced in a game. Worse than Doom 3. They're the worst.
I wouldn't go that far.
I think they're worse.
I think Doom 3s are more artless.
Doom 3.
Monster Closet comes from Doom 3 because they were literally closets that opened in front of you and a fucking zombie came out. You're like, okay, guys. Like, at least this one's using it as like a gameplay element from behind, and it's not quite so blatant.
Yeah.
But again, it's to me it's annoying because like I know they're there. Like it's one of those things where it becomes because I hear the music and I know something's going to happen. And then it does, but I didn't hear them because for some reason, even though the music's
right there, he just appeared right behind me.
The necromorphs are
this little room.
Yeah, but he came out of that door,
right? Yeah,
but like because the door opens when that cutscene happens. A lot of door locks in this game are conveniently linked to a thing happening in another room.
You go to that door, it's locked. Then all of a sudden it unlocks just for that creature to come in behind you. And that happens over and over in this game. Just be ready for it.
But like it's happening because the music's already going, and then that thing happens, and it just becomes annoying. It's just it's not scary. It's not like challenging. It's just like I knew you were there, and I just didn't pick up on it because it's so dark. And now I'm annoyed because I lost half my health.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't realize until a little bit into the game that if you have health items in your inventory, I don't remember if the original game did this. If you have health items in your inventory and you get hit and it would have killed you, you will automatically use the health item.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, because I kept picking up health items and then I go to use them and I'm like, where is all my health
I never
packs?
Noticed that.
But it's because they use them automatically to keep you alive.
Oh, I didn't know that at all. So you may have noticed that I've been using save points in this B-roll, but you don't always, if you die, you don't always go to the save point. There are checkpoints in the game.
Yeah. Which I don't think there were in the original.
I don't remember them. I don't think that there were either.
That would have been kind of anathema to survival horror designed at the time.
I like the documentation that Electronic Arts sent me with the review code said that all that stuff changes based upon the difficulty setting you select. How far back you go after you die as far as where the checkpoint is, whether there are checkpoints at all. So if you play the hardest difficulty setting on this, there are no checkpoints. You only go back to the last place that you saved. So that stuff all shifts and changes based upon the difficulty setting that you chose to play the game on.
Justin Horman says there are checkpoints, especially before bosses in the original.
But not like in this, they're everywhere.
Oh, they're yeah. You don't need to use the save points.
Yeah, I do, but you're right. You don't have to. And I think it's just habit that I keep using.
It's more important to use the save points when you're backtracking because the checkpoints don't happen as often then.
Yeah. And there are some times where the checkpoints are kind of annoyingly far away, and it will force you sometimes to play kind of a big chunks of the game. Like, even if you did something iconic, like get a new weapon, and you die after you get that weapon before you get to another checkpoint or whatever, they will take you back to before you got the weapon. So even sometimes big events in this game doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a checkpoint. Sometimes you do have to go back and play more parts of the game than you're used to in most modern games in 2023.
Still better than Callisto Protocol did it.
I'd agree. I would agree with that as well.
The biggest thing with Callisto Protocol was the inability to save after you'd already done like the 3D printer upgrade thing. So you had to sit through that every single time you died.
Yeah, that was annoying.
How did you had to run into that in testing? How did you not fix that?
Probably my biggest complaint about the game, and this was true of the original as well, is just the lack of enemy types. There literally are like 4 or 5 different enemies that you fight over and over. And look, I get it. These are the crew members of the ship who have been transformed and I'm not going to spoil what it is that's causing this, but they've been transformed, and they're going to transform the same. So if they're all humans and they all get the same whatever it is, they're going to turn into the same creatures. I get that.
Like the differences are like, oh, this one's like a foot taller,
right?
Like there's tougher ones, and
like sometimes you have to shoot their leg 8 times to drop them instead of 3 or whatever. But
and then they get like double like there are ones that can come back to life or pop out of things.
Yeah,
it's.
But you do end up fighting, for the most part, the same enemies over and over, and there aren't that many boss fights in this game either. And it's also weird the way that they're spaced out through the game. It almost takes like 4 or 5 hours before you fight your first boss, and then at that point they do start becoming a little more regular, but they're not a big part of the game, which you might assume they would be in a game like this. That's one way that this series traverses a different path from the Resident Evil franchise. Bosses are much more frequent in RE than they are in Dead Space.
Yeah, I don't really miss them.
What, boss fights?
Yeah, I boss fights, especially in games like this that are memorable or useful or interesting or fun, are years apart.
Yeah,
for most of the time, I think like
they're almost always shoot the pulsating bulbous thing.
Yeah, and like I just don't find them to add much. In fact, I think as much as I will praise Last of Us 2 forever, the worst part of The Last of Us 2 is when you fight the Resident Evil boss.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't fit. It doesn't make any sense. It is very out of character for that game and that series. And all of a sudden, you got to run around being chased by this big amorphous blob of a monster.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, what? Like,
yeah, it doesn't really fit the game at all.
And as not a thing I missed.
Yeah.
From the conventional survival horror things, and I don't miss it here either. And usually, I mean, obviously the bosses became more of a deal in Dead Space 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. Which it was fine. I remember liking Dead Space 2. I haven't played it in forever.
I liked it. Still not as good as the first game, and then the third one was a travesty. As I mentioned earlier, the game world does get repetitive and dreary. I mean, you've been watching this B-roll. This is what the game looks like. There's a couple times where you go outside. There's a couple times where you go into some zero-G areas where you're out in space and you can kind of fly around freely. But 90%
also very cool sound design-wise.
Yeah. But 90% of the game is what you're seeing right now.
I mean, I admit I haven't really played a ton of this. I think I'm in the third or fourth area, like tram-separated area. Because it's I'm just kind of done with horror games.
I'll be honest with you, Matt. Like, I'm about 10 hours in,
it's
and
just boring.
I'm on the verge of quitting playing.
Yeah, it's nothing against the game. There's nothing wrong with the game. It's a great update of this game, and I do like Dead Space. Just I've done it. I've seen it, and the repetition of it doesn't really, there's nothing near the end of Dead Space that I'm like, oh, I really want to see that again, or I really want to see what they did in the remake for that. It's just Dead Space, and I cut the limbs off of enough of these things. And I feel I'm so good about it. I'm happy.
It's so faithful to the original. There's really there's few reasons to play it again. As I've gotten farther into the game, I'm like, it is pretty much the same exact game, and so the repetition, I've started to burn out on it.
Yeah, and there's definitely you don't need to change too much about Dead Space 1. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, I've played Dead Space 1 probably 4 times. And there's not a whole lot here once you sort of get your head around the minor changes to want to do it again.
Yeah.
Not to take away from it. It's not really grabbing me. And then the Hi-Fi Rush came out, and that was kind of the end of that.
Yeah.
So because that's offering me something different, and Dead Space isn't.
I'm
very curious what my reaction to Resident Evil 4 will be, especially because Resident Evil 4 isn't really a straight horror game. It's been more, traditionally more of an action game with some horror elements, and whether that will carry me through the whole game or whether I'm just sort of done with the over-the-shoulder.
I'll be honest with you, Matt. It drove me crazy. Like, it's annoying. I feel like the third person in this game, it's clunky. You get caught on stuff. Your monster claws. You're always awkwardly trying to spin around. I don't know. It felt like an older game to me as far as like the gameplay is concerned. There's just times where I'm like, this feels like I'm playing like a survival horror game from the early aughts, and that's exactly what this game is. I also had problems with the running. Like, the way most modern games handle running is if you click it or you hit the button or whatever to run, and then if you ease off the stick, they stop running. In this, that does not happen. So a lot of times I'll ease off the stick, and muscle memory is, okay, I need to click the stick again to run again, he'll still be running, and I'll click the stick, and it turns off the run. And then suddenly I'm walking really slowly while there's a bunch of necromorphs, like, breathing down my neck, and I gotta click it again to run. It's just this very little thing that I have been programmed from playing other games to know how the run, stopping the run versus starting the run works, and it works different in this game. And that caught me off guard.
I have not noticed. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
So, in most games, if you click the stick and you start running, and you hold the stick forward, it will keep running as long as you hold the stick forward. As soon as you ease off the stick, the run stops, and then you need to click the stick again to run. In this, if you ease off the stick, he will still run. In fact, you can even change direction in this game and keep running. You can run forward and then pull back on the stick, and he'll keep running. In other games, if you did that, he would stop running, and you'd have to click the stick again to start running again. And so I do that. I change the direction. I assume he's going to stop running, so I click the stick again to run, and it actually makes him stop running.
Are you saying you can come to a complete stop and then move again, and he'll still be running?
Complete stop, I'm not 100% sure, but you can change directions, like a 180, and the run doesn't stop. And in most games, that is not the case. So it's just this thing, the muscle memory has been built up in my mind of playing games.
I haven't noticed that.
It's bothered me the entire time playing this. I did finally get over the hump, like, the last 2 hours I was playing it. But again, just something small that I noticed that kind of bothered me a little bit. But what I really noticed, Matt, playing this, and it's a little disappointing to me, is that games really haven't changed all that much in 15 years. This game is 15 years old, and it does not feel 15 years old. There's no quality of life improvements in this to improve the gameplay or how it plays. Like, most of the stuff that they've added to it are just kind of like frivolous. And it's not like a dinosaur. Like, this was like a wake-up call to me. Like, wow, the industry has really slowed the fuck down.
I think that's ridiculous.
What do you mean?
I think it's more this genre. I think there hasn't been much in the horror genre.
No, it's not. I started thinking about all the other games I've been playing, and I'm like, I can't really think of any other games that have really changed anything either. Like, it's all, since 2008, 2010, games have not changed that much, like, at all. To be able to play this hardly untouched, and to not feel older than it does, that's crazy. If you go, let's think about 2008, and go back 15 years from 2008. That puts you at 1993. Yeah, think about games from 93 to 2008. Yeah. There's no way you can tell me that the changes haven't slowed down.
Well, I think it's an irrelevant comparison, because between those 93 and 2008, 3D happened.
Yeah.
You had to completely reinvent how games were controlled and presented.
But I'm saying we've not had the paradigm shifts.
Because there's no such thing as a 4D game.
There might be someday. There might be some change.
Well, fourth dimension is time, so I don't know how you're going to do that. I don't know what you want to change when you say that, I guess.
My point is they haven't changed at all. Gaming has become way more stagnant than I realized in the last 15 years. It just has.
What would you want to change?
Just design. It's like, again, you don't care about innovation. I do. And
innovation in what? What is missing?
Anything. In anything.
So
how it's presented.
Just something different for the sake of different,
like
whether it makes sense or not.
Like the controls. If it's better, it's better.
Because there is no better, apparently. Like, what are you going to change to this that would be better?
My point is that I'm disappointed that these geniuses have not found better. We're doing the same shit we did 15 years ago.
Because it works.
Does it?
Yeah. What you're looking for is called VR, and it didn't work.
But it will work someday.
Well, one day when you don't have to, like, plug 4 wires in and put a giant headset.
But I mean, I would argue that VR should have come way more quickly, and by now it should be good. Well, we waited too long.
VR couldn't have come quickly because the tech didn't exist to make it affordable for the quality. I mean, even the PlayStation VR 2, you're pushing the limits of what's affordable in terms of acceptable presentation.
But Matt, there were VR games in arcades 20 years ago.
Yeah, and they sucked.
They were sucked, and they were very simple, but nobody tried. They just let it sit there for like 10 years and never did anything with it.
Because everybody knew there was no market for it. There was it didn't enhance anything to the point that people would spend that kind of money for it.
Look.
And they were right, because no one did.
Look, one thing I understand about this is that I've been playing games since the 70s. And most people who are watching GameFace or buy games haven't. And so, to them, 15 years of stagnation probably doesn't matter. They're like, well, shit, dude. Shane, when Dead Space came out, I was 3. I get that. I'm not. I'm in my 40s. I've been playing games since the 70s. From the 70s until 2008, shit was changing all the fucking time. Yeah, now we have a 15-year period where shit hasn't changed at all.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
you cannot see the difference.
I see the difference, but I'm saying that it doesn't matter because you're comparing the infancy of a technology and a medium to an established time of the medium. It's like saying,
But you're saying my observation was wrong, and I'm telling you it's not wrong.
I'm saying
it's slowed down.
I'm saying it doesn't matter. I'm saying
it does matter to me. I feel like we're underselling it.
I don't think we're underselling it at all, because what you're complaining about here is it's like someone who was around for the silent era of film saying, like, in the late 1910s and 1920s, we switched to sound and we changed how we shot things because we had to change how the cameras work because they had sound and you couldn't move them around as much. So now we had to use close-ups and we had to use and now we're in the 40s and the 50s and all the movies are just the same now because they're all the same. But like it's the same now because they figured it out.
But like, movies have changed, Matt.
Well, they eventually did. They turned to color, and they changed in terms of style, and games have changed in terms of style.
But they changed 3D, the CG, the technological advancements in films.
Yeah, but
now you have like these crazy theaters that like rain and blow wind and shit.
Yeah, but that doesn't make the movies any better.
Some people think it does. Well, I mean, look at Avatar. It's pulling in the dough.
Yeah, but it's not a good movie.
But people...
so what?
Is it good or is it not? If people go see it, does that mean it sucks?
I don't know, man. Transformers 3 made $1 billion. Is that one of the best movies of all time?
I think if you asked the 5-year-olds that went to see it, they probably would have said yes.
That movie was not for 5-year-olds. It was for teenagers.
Whatever. Some people went to see that movie and liked it. Like, they just did. Okay, like, we hated it. We thought it was a piece of shit, but some people liked it.
But that's not the point. Like, you're not talking about whether people like it. Tons of people like games. Games are more popular than they've ever been. So if you're talking about populist appeal in terms of change, you don't need to do that because no one cares. They buy the stuff that already exists and works.
No, the reason they keep buying this shit is because people fall off of games. A lot of people our age aren't playing games like we do, Matt. We're a fucking anomaly. We get replaced by the 12-year-olds every year. The 12-year-olds come in, and the vast majority of people our age stop playing. And those people didn't play games back when we did. They don't see the dichotomy. They don't see whether there was a change or not. All they know is that this is what games are, and this is what I buy. And to them, it doesn't matter, because it's playing Dead Space for someone who's 18 right now. They're like, I didn't play it.
What do you want? I don't
Advancements, changes.
Why?
It smacked me in the face. That shit hasn't changed in 15 years.
Again, why? What do you want to change?
That's not my job, Matt. That's the job of the geniuses who make games.
But the people whose job it is have apparently said, we don't need to change this because it already works.
No, because they're risk averse and they want to make money. That's my point. That's the whole point of all this. They've all become very comfortable and very safe. They're like, as long as the games look better, we can keep making this shit the way that we made it. And all that matters is the graphics. I disagree with that. I'm a gameplay first guy. So I'm playing a game that's 15 years old. It's the same fucking thing I played 15 years ago. And it doesn't stand out. It's like, yeah, all games are like this. Like, I don't understand how you can't see my perspective.
I see your perspective. I just think it's a silly thing to say. I don't think it matters. Like
it does. No. How about this? How can you just say for once, it doesn't matter to me, but I can respect that it matters to you. You never can do that, Matt. You can never. I say it to you all the time. If I disagree with you, I'm like, fine, I don't agree with that, but I respect your opinion. You never do that with me. Because you always have to say I'm wrong or I'm a fool. No, I'm not. I have a different perspective on it. That's all it is.
And I think your perspective is weird.
That's fine.
Because it does.
That's okay, but don't tell me that I'm wrong.
I'll tell you you're wrong because you can't tell me an example of what you want to change. If you had an example of what needed to change,
the industry is too risk averse, Matt. They're all playing it too close. The only people who will take chances are indie developers who have no risk involved with the money.
But indie games are all the same
big money projects are safe AF. That's what hit me.
Are they?
Yes.
You think Starfield is a safe project?
Yeah, why not?
You think Cyberpunk was a safe project?
Yes, absolutely.
But it wasn't, because Cyberpunk fucking imploded.
It did not. It sold like 20 million copies.
But it didn't work. It was broken when it came out. How is Cyberpunk safe?
It's a same pattern. There was nothing different about it but the setting. Just like this is nothing different but the setting. It's on a ship instead of being in a haunted mansion like Resident Evil. It's just the setting. That's all that changes. Even
but
going
this
back,
doesn't feel
think back to like, okay, so I was like, all right, what has the game of the years been? Because I started thinking about this. What have the game of the years been for the last 10 years? None of them pushed the envelope. Last year's game of the year, Elden Ring. People splooged all over it because it was an old game that they brought into a framework that everyone was familiar with. Zelda. People lost their mind over Breath of the Wild because it was an open world action RPG. Okay, was Zelda.
All right, but I'm not going to defend Breath of the Wild. You know that.
But it's the truth.
But are you going to tell me that Breath of the Wild wasn't a risk for Zelda?
No. It was the inevitable conclusion that we all had waited for a good 10 years at that point.
But it's a massive change to the format of the most proven series in Nintendo's catalog other than
They
Mario.
waited 10 years after open world games were a thing. Open world action RPGs had already taken over.
But even in
they
that
were the least risk averse.
I look, man, I'm never going to sit here and defend Breath of the Wild. You know that. I think it's one of the most overrated games ever made. But if you're going to tell me that Breath of the Wild was not a risky project in terms of what you were presenting to the fans, the least accepting fans of change.
I think the fans were begging for that exact game for 10 years. That's what people wanted. They finally gave it to them.
I don't think people were asking them to take the dungeons out of Zelda.
No, but the open world concept and open world action
I think Breath of the Wild was a risk.
I do not. I disagree with that. And I think, I'll give you this, it was more risky than a lot of big games, but that just shows you how pathetic it's become. No one's taking any risks anymore with big budget games. It's just the same thing over and over. Different setting, different character. Do they like this character? Oh, they don't. We have to stop making that franchise. But we'll make another franchise that's exactly the same with a different character that maybe they like. Again, and I realize that I am right now speaking to people who are like me, who are in their 40s and have played games since the beginning. I realize anyone who's listening to this right now, who's in their teens or their 20s, or maybe even their early 30s, are like, you're insane. I'm not sick of any of this stuff. I've only been playing it for so many years. But I'm just telling you, as someone who's seen the whole arc of the industry, this last 15-year period has been the least innovative of any period ever. And innovation matters to me. Again, I get you don't care about it. I do. I want to see changes. I want to see things get better. I don't think we're getting it, other than the visuals.
I just don't understand. The reason I dismiss what you say here so easily is because you don't have any example of what you want to change. Like if you were,
but that's not my job, Matt. I'm not a game developer.
You just want a kind of arbitrary.
Matt, I didn't know I wanted Pikmin before Miyamoto came up with Pikmin. I didn't know
an RTS.
I didn't know I wanted to play Super Mario in 3D until Miyamoto made Super Mario in 3D.
Well,
that's not my job.
A 3D Mario game was not a massive innovation.
I'm not complaining about myself. I'm complaining about the game developers and the publishers who have become risk averse and don't want to invest money in new ideas, in new concepts. I don't know how you can deny that.
Because what new concept?
Let me ask you. What was the last big budget game that you thought was innovative? Is it Zelda?
Not Zelda. Like, again, I'm not going to call Zelda innovative because I think it was remixing stuff that already existed. I think it was a risk. I think saying something is innovative and risky are two different things.
They are, but they go hand in hand.
I don't agree with that. I think certainly innovative things are generally risky, but risk is bigger than that. Risk is just
I don't think they're the same thing.
Some things are risky and they're stupid. Like that, something doesn't have to be a good idea to be risky.
Yeah, I just said they're different, but they usually go hand in hand. Risk and innovation generally go hand in hand.
I mean, I don't particularly care about the games, but I would say innovation comes from things like I'd say It Takes Two was innovative. Maybe not so innovative when you consider the game that came before it, because and It Takes Two is kind of a platforming refinement of the fucking Jailbreak game I can never remember the name of. A Way Out, is that it?
Yeah.
I would say that's innovative.
Yeah.
But
both
again,
from the same guy.
But again, if you want real innovation, you got to go to VR.
Or you got to play indie games.
I don't think indie games...
It never used to be that way, though.
I don't think indie games are innovative particularly either. I mean, I guess you could say Undertale was very innovative.
We used to get games that were in the top 20th percentile of budgets that broke the mold, that tried new things, that innovated. Now, and look, there is a law of diminishing returns involved here. Anytime somebody comes up with an idea, that means the next person can't come up with that same idea. They have to find a different idea. I don't expect it to stay on that spike that we had from 93 to 2008. Mm-hmm. That's foolish to think that it would continue that way. But, dude, it's been 15 years.
No Man's Sky.
15 years. It's crazy.
But, I do think this game feels a little primitive.
A couple things do, but
also,
for the most part.
But also, there's a bunch of stuff like that it doesn't do. I mean, you mentioned Eternal Darkness, and I've been trying to think of other games that basically have as their core combat mechanic dismembering the enemy so they can't hurt you as easily, and I can't think of anything.
Yeah. But this game is 15 years old.
I mean, I guess that technically goes all the way back to Die by the Sword.
Yeah, I mean, why, at the very least, why haven't other developers stolen this idea and expanded upon it?
I think because it doesn't sell games. Like, it's in the industry, it's a business, you know. And I mean,
here we are 15 years later, and they've remade this game.
I think if you're going to make that complaint about AAA games, that complaint has to also apply to indie games, because most indie games are not innovative.
Well,
they are they're aping the 5 forms of indie games that have been giant mega hits.
Yeah, but you have to consider the resources that they have available to them. A lot of times it's 5 dudes or whatever, like working in a garage.
Right, but that's the same as the people who were innovating back in the 80s. They had no more to work with.
We're going to do an indie preview. To your point, we're doing an indie preview a little bit later on in the show, and you're right. Like, this year, there aren't any innovative indie games. So they are also starting to run out of creative ideas.
Of. Like, there might be.
But like
innovation in the space of like big game. I mean, look, 3D movement is solved. Like, there's.
I thought the 3D movement in this sucked. That was one of the things I brought up.
I'm going to go ahead and say that is mostly the Frostbite engine.
Maybe.
Because 3D movement is... The reason you think the 3D movement in this sucks is because 3D movement is solved, and you know what proper 3D movement is, and this game isn't doing it right.
By the way, if you haven't figured it out, this is the B-roll of the old Dead Space. I'm sure you guys have figured that out by now, but just in case, I wanted to bring it up.
They figured it out because it's so much brighter.
It is brighter, but it still looks pretty damn good.
Yeah. What is this from? Xbox?
Xbox One. Yeah.
I mean, they are upscaling with that, but like that. I mean,
it still looks pretty damn good.
Dead Space was never a bad-looking game.
Yeah.
Even the PC version, while it doesn't really work right, it still looked pretty good. Like, there was a reason when the remake was announced, people were kind of like, "Well, do you really need to remake Dead Space? Because it still pretty much works fine."
Yeah.
Hello, but like, yeah. I mean, I think weirdly, I think the spaces are bigger in this.
It does. It seems more open.
Like it's big. It's like
less claustrophobic.
Yeah.
It feels like. Yep.
The
hallways feel wider too.
Yeah, it definitely feels like big. Or maybe Isaac is smaller. I don't know.
But anyway, that's one of the major takeaways I had coming away from this game. I was like, wow, things have really slowed down as far as like changing games. Like, really now, it feels like everything's just set down, and either you just change the setting, you change the art style, you change the music, and it's just like almost like an ad lib. It feels like video game development has become ad libs at this point. And again,
I think you mean Mad Libs.
Like Mad Libs, yeah. Like, again, half our audience may not even know what a Mad Lib is, but there are these books that you would buy. They still make them?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was the thing when we were young.
Even if not, there's like games that involve that like they are described as Mad Lib style. So even if you don't know what Mad Libs are, you're gonna know what that.
But that's what game development is starting to feel like.
Here's
to me.
The thing. What I would say to counter or explain that is one of the reasons it slowed down is because 3D games were figured out. 3D games kind of figured out their thing, what they could do, what they were good at, what they weren't good at, et cetera, et cetera. And that was sort of the big push. It's also one of the reasons, we're talking about GoldenEye. It's one of the reasons that generation didn't age well, was because that generation was a generation of figuring out, wow, that really isn't, okay, that looks better when you stomp on boxes in the new one.
Yeah, definitely. When it disappeared before you actually stomped on it.
You can see the whole room in this, too. There's just a lighting issue here.
The lighting's way brighter in this, for sure.
In midair, that's good. But like, it was there's a whole generation where they had to figure out how 3D worked, basically. And, you had things where like Mario 64 and Zelda sort of figured out how you navigated and how you locked on in a 3D space, and slowly it was refined. And I think the next wave of innovation in that regard, and figuring out a new language of a new form of the medium, was VR. Mm-hmm. And unlike 3D, which this could have happened, like there was a possibility, and Sega kind of bet on it and lost. There was the possibility that people could have rejected 3D, but they didn't. But the mass audience rejected VR.
Yeah. Price probably had a lot to do with that.
You can go back and forth all day on why that is. I think cost is a big part of it. Yeah. I think lack of support and lack of constant. I mean, the one thing you cannot say about the 3D infancy era is there was a lack of things to play. Like PlayStation 1 had new releases every fucking week for a while. N64 not so much, but when they did, it was a banger most of the time.
Because again, 3D was new.
Yeah, they were trying to figure out new things and all that. But VR had that ceiling of, or not that ceiling. It had that barrier to entry, and no one really jumped over it. It was, it was just with 3D. It was a choice of like, am I going to buy the PlayStation, the 3D system, or am I going to buy the 2D system? The answer was 3D system for like 95% of the people. Not me. I bought a Saturn because that's who I am. But like, VR was rejected in that regard. If VR was embraced the way the PlayStation 1 was, I think we would be seeing innovation over the last 5 or so years of that on that level. I think we would be seeing developers and the best...
If it had been successful,
and the best minds in development figuring out how to talk to people through this new medium. And we're not seeing it because it didn't work. Yeah. And it might one day, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the change... Obviously, it was not to put out a $500 add-on for the PlayStation 5.
Yeah. It's just, I'm getting to the point with my age and how long I've been in the industry where I'm starting to notice trends. It's like, wait a minute, I've been, if you've been I was playing hardcore back when this came out in 2008. I was just as hardcore then as I am now. Playing just as many games then as I am now. And it smacked me in the face. I was like, this game is basically a game from 2008, and it's fine in 2023. Mm-hmm. To me, that's nuts.
The further
even music stuff like music production in the last if I listen to tracks made in 2008 versus listening to a track that is made now, you can hear it. You can hear the advances in music production, particularly with electronic music. Like just the way that the sounds are formed, the way everything is mixed. Like I feel like our medium is getting stagnant, Matt. That scares me.
It doesn't scare me at all. Stagnation is not it's not stagnant because execution gets better and better. Innovation is not the only place you determine stagnation or freshness. Every time, the more and more mature a medium gets, and the more refined everything gets, the more it becomes just refining things over and over again and making them better and better until you get to the point where we're at right now, where even like a fairly small developer like the people who made Stray or Hellblade can make Stray or Hellblade.
The games that look good with minimal budget and investment,
but they look as good, and they get across their ideas, and they get what they're after done in a way that you just couldn't 10 years earlier.
But again, I think that's all technology. I think it's just because the hardware. I don't think it's creativity on the part of the developers.
What do you think 3D and 4DX or whatever and all that stuff you listed about modern movies is? That's just technology.
A lot of it
makes the movie any
You're
better.
right. A lot of it does rely on advancements in technology. Like you said, if VR
and this has games have always been technology first.
Yeah,
always.
But my point is, I don't feel it's like I said before. Like
innovation in games tends to come from, oh my god, we can do this now.
Yeah.
And I think we're out of that for 3D games.
I don't see them using the power of these machines in an innovative way. It's like, we're going to make the character models look better. We're going to make it so you can see farther. And we're not going to use fog to hide the horizon or whatever. But instead of, like I've mentioned before, like somebody needs to make a game, kind of like the Dead Space rework, where it's just room by room, and you really use the power of this hardware. You never go outside, or maybe at the end the reveal is going outside finally. You're escaping something, and then the payoff to finish the game is you get outside or whatever. A little bit like Stray actually was.
But to do what? I guess is what I'm saying. But
my point is so then you can use the power of the hardware in more interesting ways for AI, like enemy AI.
That is always going to be a dead
for
end.
enemy variety.
They say that every generation and every boost in
they never use it for it
because it's very, very hard and it's not worth it. Like, people don't notice
advances
that shit.
in AI are some of the biggest technological advancements of the last 5 years.
In terms of AI, like
any
art
AI,
direction,
any
but not
kind of
video
AI.
game enemy AI. That's not.
Why?
That's because it's very hard to do and it doesn't actually change much. Because people don't want smart enemies. They want enemies.
They don't have to be enemies. They could be teammates.
Well, that's not a thing that is.
What do you mean it's not a thing? There's NPCs that fight alongside you all the time.
Is that going to sell more copies? Is it going to change anything? Like, when's the last time an AI teammate made a difference to you?
I mean, teammates make a difference to me in every game I play, whether they act smart or they aren't, or whether they shoot stuff and it actually doesn't do any damage. All that stuff matters. Absolutely. So anyway, this is just an observation that I had after playing a big chunk of this, that I'm like, here I am playing the same game I played back in 2008, and it's fine. It doesn't stick out. It's just another video game that came out in 2023. That, to me, seems crazy.
I mean, I don't know. I think this is pretty different from the stuff I've been playing recently, but it doesn't...
Different because, you mean like as far as it feels old?
Yeah. I mean...
I don't think it does. I mean, there's a couple of nuances that I mentioned throughout our discussion.
I think at the very least, the controls feel a little dated.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that.
But, part of that is... I don't know if I never felt that about the original game, but that's probably because I haven't played the original game in 7 to 8 years.
Yeah.
And because it's a horror game, like horror games have always had the crutch of like, oh, it controls bad because it's supposed to be scary. Because I'm like, no, that's just fucking annoying. That was always bullshit. The tank controls were always bullshit.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like Resident Evil 4 is a little more advanced in this game in a lot of ways, even going back to 2008. I mean, it's obviously taking from Resident Evil 4. This game doesn't exist without Resident Evil 4. But like Resident Evil 4 keeps it a little fresher throughout. And that's probably changes in environment. Well, I mean, look,
we're about to play.
You decide this takes place on a spaceship, you're on that spaceship. That's one of its weaknesses is the environments can't really change much.
Well, it'll be interesting to play the RE4 remake and see what parts of that game Capcom felt wasn't up to scratch for 2023. And
I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated in what my reaction to that will be because I love Resident Evil 4.
Me too.
I haven't played Resident Evil 4 in forever.
Yep.
I'm considering playing it again before the remake comes out just to sort of have it fresh in my mind, or at least like start a game. Probably that's a long game.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I don't know. Like it's. I really don't know what my reaction to the Resident Evil 4 remake is going to be.
I hope it's great.
I hope so. I mean,
I hope it's awesome.
I hoped that was going to be my reaction to this, and it kind of is.
I mean, I still played 10 hours of this thing before I started to burn out on it.
This is a really good remake, but like,
I was also surprised how much I had forgotten about the game.
Yeah.
Like, there was a couple puzzles I was like, I should remember how to solve this puzzle, like, right away, and I didn't. And I was like,
also surprised
a little disappointed in my retention.
I was surprised in how much I'd forgotten how the kinesis worked.
Yeah.
I'm like, it took me like 3 minutes to figure out how to move the first box properly.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, right, because you have to move him with... Again, that would be solved differently today.
It should be.
It
wasn't, though.
I'm surprised that they didn't change how you controlled... I wonder if they just couldn't figure out how to make...
Yeah.
That would have probably required overhauling how all the puzzles worked with that, and probably that was too much work for this project. Yeah. But like I feel like if you were going to do like a telekinesis ability in a modern game, you would do it very differently, and you would probably switch it to use the right stick to direct the thing you're using.
Once you have it up, you just use the right stick.
And this one, you literally have to move Isaac's angle and body and direction to make it move in the direction you want it to go. And first, I thought it was stuck, and it was I don't know.
Who would you recommend this to, Matt, to buy right now at full price?
I mean, probably Dead Space 1 fans in the first place.
You would recommend it to people who really liked the first?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're ready and aware that it's just the same game again with some tweaks, like this is great. It's a really good remake. If you like horror games and don't have anything to play in terms of the third person sort of run around corridors and shoot things horror stuff, is pretty good. Also, if you're a fan of dismembering things, there's very few... I can't think of a lot of other games that are better. Obviously, tons of games have dismemberment, but I can't think of too many that use dismemberment as a gameplay function mechanic in the way this does. Yeah. In the way that cutting an arm off something makes it come at you in a completely different way.
Because I will say this, Eternal Darkness does not hold up as well.
No.
This game. Granted, that's from 97, so it gets a pass.
That's 2002 or something.
Eternal Darkness?
Yeah.
Was it?
It was on the game.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
It was gonna be 1997.
Yeah, it's originally supposed to come out for the N64 on 97.
I played the N64 version at E3.
At E3, I did too. It was almost done.
Yeah.
And then they canned it.
I remember that year. That was an amazing year. I think, was that 99?
Yeah.
99, because I think that was the year I played like 3 things on the N64 that didn't come out until the GameCube.
Dinosaur Planet,
and Cameo.
Yeah.
Yep. Rare.
Those were the days. I would actually struggle, Matt, to tell someone who played the original to buy this at full price.
I think if you haven't played the original in more than 10 years, if you played the original when it came out and you haven't played it maybe since that gen, it might be time.
Maybe. I would probably still recommend to those people to maybe wait for the first price drop. If you are younger and you've never played Dead Space, I think you're probably going to love this game. Because I would love to play this again for the first time.
Yeah.
Impossible. But if you've never played Dead Space, I would recommend buying this at full price. And it's like 15 hours, 16 hours long. It's not...
Yeah, it's respectable.
It's not so short that you'll feel ripped off, but it's not so long that it drags on.
And there is a new ending if you play it a second time.
Oh, really?
Stupid. The New Game Plus has a new ending of some kind, which is stupid.
I would just watch that on YouTube.
Like, you're just kind of being a dick at that point. That's not innovation I can get behind.
It would be cool if they
only giving me the real ending after I played the game twice. What is this, Ghosts and Goblins? We already did that.
It would be cool if somehow they had your save data from like Xbox Live or something. Yeah. And if they knew that you had already finished it once, they would just give you the new ending to watch. But they can't do that.
No,
because our saves have not been pushed forward from that far back, unfortunately.
No, I mean my saves from the last gen, but like Xbox 360. No, I think you could transfer some saves from Xbox 360. I remember doing that on the Xbox One.
No, really?
But I'm sure that didn't carry over. I remember I definitely remember transferring my save for Rock Band onto Xbox One.
I think they made it. It was like a special.
That was a special thing
where they went out of their
Band,
way to make sure that would happen. Yeah.
You could upload save. I can still actually get 360 saves from a cloud.
Can you?
On some things. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Some of the backwards
So
compatible
maybe they could have
stuff.
done it.
But it's the backwards compatible stuff that's still literally the 360 version, not like an updated new version of it.
Yeah.
Like if I wanted to play Red Dead Redemption and import my save from the 360, I could do that.
Yeah. Let's see what you guys are saying. Justin Ormer, I prefer this method of unlocking a secret ending rather than collecting Riddler trophies, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. I can't imagine how you do that on this. It'd just be cluttered with more shit.
Erebus says you absolutely can move a 360 save if they were cloud saved. I don't think I ever did that, though.
You can. Yeah, I've definitely done that.
I wonder if I could boot up my old 360 and still transfer the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I've definitely done that.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, you'll have to sit there and let it update and stuff, and it takes it. You want to see innovation? It's not innovation; it's just technological. But you'll see how long it takes to upload a fucking cloud save on the 360. There's an experience.
I mean, we've been dealing with that,
and now it's just like boom,
transferring the stuff from the Wii. Like that took forever.
Yeah.
Like for whatever reason, all the cloud stuff.
Where you hook them up through like the thing, like you just sort of left it for 3 hours and hoped.
And it had that animation where like people were getting on like a plane or something.
It was like it's like, oh my god, could you have just made this faster instead of spend all your time making this funny little animation?
Yeah. So anyway, there you go. That's the Dead Space refurb.
Yeah. Got Mr. Carpenter. Got that.
Yeah.
And this is what I went to get.
Oh yeah. Let's put the camera on you so you can show it off. What is that?
This is the limited edition of Dead Space 1.
Oh snap!
There are only 1,000 of these.
Really?
You had to order them special through EA's website. I don't remember why I ordered it, because you had to pre-order it. It was sold out like that. And I just ordered it because I thought it looked cool. And
what's in there?
Well, the game was in here, but then there's a signed card.
Who signed that?
Glenn Schofield.
It is Glenn.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And another thing, also signed by the art guy. And then you open this up. I haven't opened this in years, but it's got like the patch for the Ishimura and little art book and a little. I think this is a comic, like graphic novel making of thing. And then this is some kind of PC. What is it? Dead Space bonus content disc. So it's got like behind the scenes
making of stuff like that
on it. Yeah, they did this for this and Mirror's Edge and whatever the third game in that kind. Remember that they had like the 3 games that were like, we're doing new IPs and we're going to branch out and do crazy. It was this and Mirror's Edge and something else.
Was it Dante's Inferno?
That might have been it. Yeah,
it was right around that time.
Yeah, that sounds.
It's like the last original IP that EA released.
That sounds like it might be right. And this is, what is it? Oh, this is the PC version, I think, right? Yeah, no, this is the animation, the Downfall.
Oh, right,
this
Downfall.
The prequel.
Yeah.
And then in here was the 360
the actual
version,
game
which
disc.
It's on my shelf downstairs.
Yeah.
Why would you?
How much was that? Do you remember?
I want to say it was like $100.
Yeah.
100 something.
That's about right.
And now it's worth like $1,200.
Really?
$1,500.
Be careful putting all that stuff back in there, man.
Because they don't
want to bend any corners.
I also got the Mirror's Edge one, which was not as good. The Mirror's Edge one was basically just came with her messenger bag.
Yeah. Don't forget your signed
card. Which actually turned out to be like a really cheap ass. Like it was not. It was. What was it? There was a Fallout 76 bag gate before the Fallout 76 bag. It was just not very good.
Gotcha.
And it fell apart. But yeah, it was. This I thought this was pretty cool. There was ultra limited edition. That's what, only 1,000 of them. So what is this? What version of it? That actually has the thing. This is number 376 of 1,000.
Wow, that's why it's worth so much money. There's only 1,000 of them. It's crazy. All right, so there you go. That's the Dead Space refurb.
Always committed to the dismemberment.
Yeah,
it was the iconic of the time.
Yeah,
it's a hand floating in space.
Yep. So we recommend it to those of you who have not played Dead Space before, and Matt recommends it to people like us who played it way back in the day. I would say wait for a discount.
I will say, I mean, again, it also kind of depends where you are. Like, there's so much stuff coming out in the next 2 months that maybe not. Like, maybe, but part of it's kind of like, oh, it'd be a good filler game for when you don't have anything else to play and you're waiting for the other stuff to come out. But like by the time that happens, the price probably will have dropped, or it might have ended up on EA Play.
Well, the other thing too is that next month they're like, we just put up Dossier, and
February and March is just
there are 10
madness.
games worth buying in March.
So like you might end up having to wait until like July to bother playing this, and by then it might actually have dropped in price.
That's true.
Know.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good. I think it's a very, very good. I think they accomplished everything they wanted to accomplish with this. but it's a little held back by being itself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. But they did do a good job on it. Like the craftsmanship and everything in the game, I didn't have any bugs or other weird crap happening. Like it ran smooth, nothing like that. So we'll see. We'll see how RE4 does. Because that's coming pretty soon as well, and that might be a game that people are considering instead of this game, and therefore maybe, if you are really excited for RE4 and you're like, Shane, I can only afford one horror game per quarter or per half of the year or whatever, I would probably say wait for RE4.
Yeah, I would probably, if I had to bet on one of these, it would be Resident Evil 4.
You're working with better material from the start.
Look, I'm not going to...
keep her away.
I'm going to keep her away. I'm edging her off the table with the Dead Space thing. Resident Evil 4 is a better game.
Yeah.
It always has been.
And
I see no reason to expect that to change with the remakes.
Yep.
You know?
You can reprise your role as the merchant from RE4. Back in the day, one of Matt's characters on X-Play was he played the merchant from Resident Evil 4. Mm-hmm. What are you buying?
What are you buying? What are you selling?
You think they're going to keep him in the game?
Oh, he's in. Yeah, absolutely. Like if he's not in it, is it Resident Evil 4?
That'll be a huge mistake.
I bet he's got his own fucking side quest. You probably play as him through a whole side story now.
Yep.
I think we will find things out about the Resident Evil 4 merchants like backstory, and it will be very disappointing. It'll be one of those things where you should never have elaborated on that.
Well, remember the merchant from the latest Resident Evil was memorable again. Yeah. It was like the first time,
and he mentions him.
Right. It was the first time they brought that concept back to Resident Evil, where the merchant was like this legit character that you actually cared about.
Yeah. And it would just like magically appeared like never quite explained what he was doing or why he was there.
Yep. Okay, there you go. The Red Space refurb. Next up, we're going to talk about one of the reasons why everyone's leaving E3, because everybody just wants to do pre-recorded facsimiles of Nintendo Direct, where you control everything, you know what's in every frame, you don't have to worry about somebody botching their presentation, you don't have to worry about the game crashing live on stage, you don't have to worry about people booing, if it being immortalized throughout all time, you don't have to worry about...
There will never be another Ridge Racer.
Right. You don't have to worry about any of those mistakes anymore.
There will never be another 1 million troops.
1 million troops, yep. That'll never happen again.
And look, that's a shame to some degree, because, I was in the third row center for that PlayStation E3 conference.
Yeah.
Presentation.
I was at that Konami press conference too, man.
I could not believe what I was seeing, and I feel kind of like E3 in general. I do feel sad that no one will ever get to live that again.
Or the Zelda thing where they unveiled Twilight Princess for the first time.
And there were literally people crying on the floor.
That stuff's never going to happen again.
I mean, that was not a pleasant thing to be around.
No, it was awkward and weird.
But
it was a moment.
Cringe was not a term then, but that was very
cringe. It was cringe. Yeah, absolutely. But all that stuff is gone now and replaced, and in its stead is the Direct. And now it's funny.
Obi-Wan 9000 even points out a good recent one. You have phones, right? Remember that? When people freaked out about Diablo Immortal?
Then there's TV.
As soon as you put somebody on stage, the only thing anyone remembers that Peggle guy for is that weird thing where he did Peggle 2 and he did the fucking Iron Man landing for no good reason and said Peggle 2. Why? Yeah. Why did that happen? Don't ever let these people out in front of
Then there was
TV.
That was the Xbox press conference.
Yeah,
Xbox One unveiling.
With a quick side journey into ESPN territory.
Right, yeah. All that great stuff is gone forever, and instead we get Directs. And in fact, Xbox and Bethesda didn't even try to come up with its own name for them.
Nope.
It literally called it Developer Direct.
Yep. Whatever.
That's kind of embarrassing that they couldn't come up with their own name for them.
It covers the subject.
It does. We know what they are thanks to Nintendo.
I kind of appreciate it. It's we're not busting the thesaurus out for this one. Nintendo doesn't have a copyright on Direct. Fuck you.
And I will say this, it was good.
Yeah.
It was a good Direct from Xbox.
Especially because they prepared you ahead. Starfield's not here.
Yeah.
Just
because it's probably going to get its own.
Yeah, absolutely.
My guess. Literally a 30-minute.
And you got to put Redfall out first.
Yeah.
You can't. Starfield's a distraction now. You're just going to overshadow all these other games that need to have their own time.
Yep. And they did blow out Redfall for the first time, and now I can finally talk about it because I've been...
Jamie Kennedy from the Activision press conference, there's
just tons of them. That whole Konami press conference had 20 things in it that
we lived in a moment of time that will never
We were very lucky
to
be there. Wii Music presentation, Rock and Roll 458 reminds us of... It just goes on and on. Those things are never going to happen again. It's just not. So anyway, Xbox and Bethesda
his body
teaming up
was ready.
now for their Direct. They finally blew out Redfall, and I can finally talk about it a little bit. I mean, like, hinting about this game for weeks and weeks. I've been in the beta. And now you see why I was saying it's not really Left 4 Dead, but it kind of is. It is an open world Left 4 Dead, I guess is the best way to describe it. The concept of the safe house is the same, but you're not, as I kind of hinted in the last couple of weeks, you're not just like running in a linear path from one safe house to the next.
And that really has kind of, especially through Back 4 Blood, has sort of been revealed to me. Is like, that's what annoys me about the Left 4 Dead formula, is the cattle shoot.
Yeah, it is. You're running down
the point A to
tunnel.
point B thing.
Yep, and this is open world, and you can really choose whenever you want to take on missions. You go to the safe houses to get your missions from a bulletin board, and that's where you can sync up, and you can play with 3 other people. You can choose whether you want to do it on your own. You can choose whether you want to play it with 2, 3, 4 players. I know the big question everybody's asking is, how does it scale? I'm a little nervous about talking too much about anything that wasn't in this presentation, honestly. But I did watch this presentation really closely and took a lot of notes so that I was sure that I could share as much as I could. I don't think I'm allowed to talk about the balancing yet from like 1 players to 4 players. So I won't. But there's plenty of other stuff to talk about.
Unfortunate, because that's my only real question.
It is what most people's questions
are. Can I play this without other people?
And have it work well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Left 4 Dead, as soon as you remind me of Left 4 Dead, that means I'm not buying it because I can't play it solo.
Well, I'll say this. It's not as much like Left 4 Dead as you think. How does that make you feel?
I mean, less like Left 4 Dead outside of the sense of humor is a good thing.
Because Left 4 Dead, you really can't play it by yourself.
No, not at all.
It's like the most frustrating...
And they've never figured that out. There's some innovation I'd like to see. Back 4 Blood, having figured that out would have been a good one. Like,
they still can't figure it out.
It's sort of like you with Dark Souls. I just like to see the game, please.
Yeah.
But I can't because the AI partners are morons. There's a place where I guess AI would be a big deal. But again, you're talking about all that work to cater to how many people are going to play like a Left 4 Dead game solo. Like, there's me and like 5 other people.
Yep.
Like, if the people that want to play that solo got together and just wouldn't talk to each other, we could have played the game together.
Yeah. The one thing I would say about this that I am allowed to say is the game isn't really scary. And they don't really try to make it scary. It's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek take on vampires.
It always felt more like a Buffy kind of thing.
It is.
Buffy's not scary.
That's probably a good way to put it. As you've seen in this big blowout, the graphics are stylized. They have a little bit of like a cartoony, animated look to them. They're not trying to be hyper-realistic. There are lots of jump scares in this and monster clauses, just like there are in Dead Space, and not quite to the extent because they can't anticipate 100% where you're going to go in this. Now, like, there's very specific areas in the open world, and there's an element of taking over territory in this game that's much more prevalent than you might expect, because after you take over a couple areas that are next to each other, you'll take on like the local boss, like a mini boss. They have a name for it. I can't remember what it is right now. And that's kind Yeah, and then it is a little bit. And then if you take out that guy, then you move up. And there's this hierarchy of vampires this ladder, basically.
Vampires love hierarchies.
Yeah, that you have to take on till you get to, like, the ultra vampires, which are these insane bosses that, like, have their own special attacks and things like that. I really had questions about how they would use the open world in a game like this, and they do a really good job of making use of the open world. The other thing I would say, too, is that people who are fans of Arcane that are worried that this isn't an Arcane game, you're wrong. It is. You can play this game the way you want. You can stealth around in this game and, like, complete missions playing stealth. You can go in guns blazing if you want to as well, but you can absolutely play this how you want to. Which I think is important for people who are fans of their games, although there aren't enough of those or their games would sell a lot more than they usually do. You get both military and supernatural weapons and gear. You customize your weapons with vampire stakes, which are basically just bayonets that you have. You can see it on every gun in this footage. Every gun is a bayonet, and that's a vampire stake that you use. And you can customize those, and they give you like little buffs for your weapons. You choose a hero. Each hero has 3 unique abilities, and they really run the gamut. One guy has like this bird that you can send out that scouts an area and will mark the enemies so you can see the enemies through walls and things like that. There's a combat robot that you can send out that'll distract the enemies, and the enemies will attack them, and you can flank them. And again, I can only mention stuff that was in this presentation, so I'm being very careful here. There's a teleporter ability where you can literally just jump in time, like a good 100 yards forward. So if you want to catch an enemy off guard, and that works really well for some of the higher level vampires. There's a spring ability. Like one character has this box that she'll sort of summon, and she can spring off of it. She can also set the springs up for teammates so they can spring. There's an umbrella that absorbs energy and bullets from enemies, and then you can send it all back at the enemies. What else? I think that's all that they mention in this footage. Again, I'm trying to be really careful. There's also spring pads, so if you die, that'll get you back into the fight really quickly. That's been in other shooters, but they're utilized pretty well here. As I said, the safe houses are basically, they call them home bases in the game. One of the examples that they show in this presentation is a firehouse. And inside those, you can rest, you can restore, and you can chat with other players. You can set up play sessions. And you receive missions from survivors on the bulletin board. And then vampires. The vampires obviously are a big part of this. That's what the whole crux of the game. Those are the enemies that you're fighting over and over. And some of the vampires have special abilities. There's one called Shroud that can create a barrier around the play world that kind of keeps you trapped. So you have to fight them in close quarters. And we've seen that in other games where this impromptu arena pops up and you're forced to fight a couple enemies in very tight confines. But each vampire kind of has a special ability like that can put you in unique situations. Let's see, there's psychic vampire nests. Those are lairs that you infiltrate, and every time you play them, they change. I think they're dynamically generated, but one of the things that Arcane wants to really get out there about this game is that it is not a dynamically generated game. It is not one of those games where it's just copy and paste throughout the whole game. Everything is built custom in this game. Every mission, every enemy, every moment is something that they built by hand. It wasn't something that they just let AI generate from a tool set.
There's no director here.
Right, yeah. It's all stuff that they custom built. Now, again, I think for fans of Arcane, that's something that they want to hear.
That's a very important thing to get at. I mean, I can't believe how wrong the impression of this game was for so long. Mm-hmm. It really,
it's their fault, though.
It is.
Because they wouldn't talk about it. And
they wouldn't talk about it, and that initial trailer really makes it look like a Left 4 Dead clone.
It does, yeah.
That was just my assumption.
You're not alone. A lot of people felt that way, and that's why it was frustrating for me to sit here and not be able to talk about it. I was trying to hint as best I could without blowing the NDA that, no, it's really not like that.
Yeah, the presentation here definitely made it look more like something I would want to play.
Yeah, even though it's a shooter.
Yeah. I mean, I like shooters as long as I don't like multiplayer shooters much, and I don't care much about the military shooters at this point. Mm-hmm. Not because I dislike military shooters by default, but because I really, after many years, I just feel like no one's ever going to top those initial Modern Warfares. Yeah, and
even you're right, they haven't.
No, they haven't. And even as someone who doesn't really like the original Black Ops games, even that I can definitely tell there's a lack of verve compared to I don't know. I don't like Black Ops 1, but or Black Ops 2, but there's it's hard to describe, but it's you feel like the people who made those games wanted to be there making those games. Yeah. And the more recent Call of Duties and Battlefields have this we had to do this, so here it is. Yep. And I just don't, but a good shooter will definitely catch my attention if it's got something going on for it, especially if I don't have to play with other people. Yep. So I like the Far Cry games.
Yeah. I'm rewinding the footage here to just show you guys a couple things. First of all, I want you to see there's the trees.
Skill tree.
Yep. Which are pretty big for a shooter.
Yeah. And are these universal or are they different per character?
They're different per character. Okay. Yep. Which is a big deal. And then this B-roll here gets into the vampire nests. And basically the objective is you go into the nest, and it's once you go in, there's no turning back. And once you go into the nest, the objective is to fight to the center of the nest, destroy a heart, and then escape. And so one thing I would say is that the mission variety in this is pretty impressive, man. And the enemy variety, too. Like I said, each vampire kind of has its own special abilities. There was some B-roll a second ago that was showing some of that. One vampire has this crazy shield that, rotates around them. You never... Unlike with Dead Space, you never really knew what you're getting yourself into in this game until you're neck deep in it, and then you got to figure out how to get yourself out of it. I I've really enjoyed the beta. I can't say too much more than that. But I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised by this game. This is why I said when you picked it for your fantasy team that you're going to be pleasantly surprised by the score, I believe. Any questions that you had other than the scaling after watching this?
Not really. Like, I think the only question I have left is only going to be answered once I get my hands on it. Like, it's going to, kind of like the Arcane thing. It's like, I have the opposite question about Arcane because I don't really like their games that much.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan either, generally.
Like, I just don't. I just gonna have to depend how it feels to play.
Yeah,
that's all. Is it gonna still?
And you're right. Arcane's games don't always feel great to play.
No, there's a slightly
the shooting
weird,
always feels a little weird. And this is a shooter.
But like, just how often, because Arcane's games haven't really relied on shooting that much. Maybe Prey had more shooting than usual. But there's even as much as I did like Prey, but like they have a thing where it's sort of like Arcane games and I never quite agree on where the sight is pointed. I think that was a headshot. I know you think it was 3 inches above their head, but I really don't think that's true. You seem to be using the same aiming system as Uncharted 1. So I'm curious with this thing that seems to rely very heavily on the gunplay working properly. How am I going to feel about that? I don't know.
Yep. I can't say much more. I've pretty much gone through all the information that was in this direct, and that's all I can talk about. But I would say this, keep an eye on this game. They announced its release date. It's coming out on May 2nd, so not a ton of time to wait before it comes out. But yeah, it's I will just say this. If you're a sifter and you use Sifted, follow this game. Because one, they don't release much media. Right now we have this trailer and that chunk of gameplay. Yeah. And that's all we have on this game that they've released publicly, which is crazy. But for whatever reason, I don't know why they're playing it this way. Because you're right, a lot of people were misled on what this game was because they just weren't sharing.
I mean, they might be saving it for like big, major, like multimedia campaign closer to release.
Yeah, maybe.
But you probably see ads for this on like basketball and football. Not football because it won't be the right time of year, but like baseball. Does anyone spend money to advertise on baseball anymore?
Not that much. Ad rates are pretty low on MLB games because it's like 200,000 people watching each one. Yeah. Their TV ratings have really went in the toilet. So anyway, again, that's Redfall launching May 2nd. The second big game that they showed off, finally, Forza Motorsport. Finally got an update on their big racing sim and...
Still wouldn't commit to a date.
No, it's 2023.
They swear it's 2023.
Yeah, but we've been burned by that before, haven't we? After waiting like 2 years to get an update on this game, they really didn't provide a whole lot of information. Like, the only nuts and bolts they gave us was that there's a new track called Kyalami that's set in South Africa. There's going to be 5 new environments in the game, plus 15 fan favorites from prior games, but they've been completely rebuilt for Xbox Series. It'll feature more than 500 cars, and 100 cars that are brand new to the franchise, and there are more than 800 unique upgrades available in the entire game. Damage and dirt buildup is also simulated as you play. Car gets dirtier and more banged up to reflect how you've been driving. And then the rest of it was just really focusing on the graphics. They use some crazy kind of paint technology to make paint look different depending on the lighting. Like, as they said, it has 10 times the detail of the last game.
I'm not sure how you quantify that, but sure.
Yeah, exactly. And then they give a laundry list of graphical features like a procedural cloud system, physically based lighting, volumetric fog, which has been a thing since like the N64, and dynamic time and weather. But other than that, like they've said that
volumetric fog is called out because that's one of the things racing games cheat on.
No,
because you generally don't need it. Like all you need to do is see fog out there, and if you're making it volumetric, you're like, why are you wasting processing power on this thing that you? But because when you get up close to fog, even in real life, you don't see fog anymore.
No,
you just sort of
everything just looks a little misty.
But they're going to make it so theoretically, so you could drive through it, and it'll be a thing you could drive through as opposed to just an effect
away,
on the horizon.
maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of technological effort. I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of plug-in. Some parameter you set.
Yeah.
Whereas,
game looks gorgeous.
Oh, it looks amazing. Like the cloud thing's amazing, but you're gonna be like, oh, look at those clouds, and you're never gonna look at them.
Yeah. Who looks at the clouds while you're driving along? Like nobody.
I mean, it matters in the sense it's like your brain notices little things. As the graphics get better and better, you'll start to see like weirder things will annoy you. I've noticed that playing like Cyberpunk with everything all turned way up is like, it really bugs me that can isn't like exactly level with the table it's on kind of thing. It's like little things will annoy your brain more than things. And so
it's
like,
the uncanny valley for that.
For like environments. There's nothing left to do in this game. Like,
I mean, it's
you've
just this genre in general.
Yeah, you basically perfected driving physics. Like GT figured that out back in GT3. Really, I mean, driving it's just about refinement, and now it's about visual refinement. To the point that, like, I mean, I'm a car person.
That's pretty absurd. Look at that shot right there. Look at the reflections in the back of that Nissan.
You wanted ray tracing. There's your fucking ray tracing.
This footage is drenched in ray tracing.
Yeah, here's a next gen only game.
Yep. Yep, absolutely.
But like, cool.
That's it.
Like, this is exactly what it's like. Okay, this is very pretty.
Kevin Rafa brings up you could improve car damage.
Yeah.
But you don't. Here's the thing: you don't want the damage to affect how the car handles.
Like,
I don't.
That's the thing everybody talks about. Like, it could be realistic damage that like causes like performance. But nobody wants.
I don't want that.
What are you going to do if that happens during a race during your career mode? You're going to restart the race, aren't you?
It's like, annoying.
Why? What's the point? It would literally be a bullet point on these kinds of presentations, and it wouldn't matter for. You wouldn't restart the race even for it. You just do the rewind feature.
Eric Carmena says more weather.
Weather's good. Yeah, more weather's good. Weather racing is good. Maybe there is. I mean, I know that's not true, really. Of like, they're kind of doing more of a professional racing circuit thing. I always found the Metropolis Street Racer, like Project Gotham style, like city racing stuff more interesting.
I'd agree. There's no reason why these cars can't drive through the city.
They could absolutely, and they do. Like, there are city. Obviously, they're not all just official. Like GTA gets too wrapped. Gran Turismo gets too wrapped up in like the circuit tracks. Mm-hmm. But like circuit tracks are fine. But I want a little real world stuff here.
I mean, I just don't understand. They don't have to be all on tracks.
No,
a lot of these feel like they always have to be at the official Nürburgring. Like, it has to be at all these legendary tracks. That's fine, but it's okay to drive those cars over other places.
Suzuka's great, but like I don't need to race 40 times on the same track.
Exactly.
And I know that's real. Like, that's what you do if you're a professional driver. But it's like, that's not interesting.
DLC, Matt. It's all coming as DLC, which it probably will. That's probably exactly what will happen.
But like, this is also what that's. Forza Horizon is more interesting to me because it's more arcadey, but also because it is more variety and it's
more fun.
Yeah, you're just out there doing, like, you're kind of dealing with the road. It's not as controlled locations, like, it's not track racing in the same way. The one thing I think Forza Horizon falls short on is what I was just talking about, like the Project Gotham experience, where you have this kind of that was the cool thing about those games, was like, what cities are they going to do? Like, you got to drive to different parts of these cities.
The whole kudos system was an interesting way to play too.
I mean, that is basically the level up system in Horizon.
Yeah,
like that. It's weird how, like, that's the little things, like the kudos system in, was it Metropolis Street Racer was the first. That was the Dreamcast one.
Yep.
That system, going back to innovation again, that system changed racing games.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
Like,
why can't we find something else to do that? Because we really need some innovation in this genre.
But that's how small it can be.
The changes can be to make a big difference. Absolutely.
And that's the thing that keeps you hooked on Horizon for hours and hours, is that constant dopamine, serotonin push of the button. It's like, I earned a thing. I got a thing.
Yeah.
Wheel spin. Got to do a thing. Yeah. Like, that all comes from the kudos on that original game.
Yep, absolutely.
And it can be that small.
Are you excited for this game at all, Matt?
I wouldn't say I'm missing it, Bob.
Yeah, me either.
I'm not excited. I mean, it's going to be a cool. I mean,
I did play Gran Turismo 7 more than I thought I would.
Yeah. Put it this way. I'm looking forward to seeing it on my computer and my TV.
Yeah.
But mainly because I know it's on Game Pass.
Yeah.
And if I knew I had to pay $70 to do that, I would be much less excited.
I mean, I can tell you probably right now that I would not recommend you spend $70.
No.
I've never even played it. I just know for me personally, it's like, it's cool. It's okay to play these games. It's not something I thirst for.
No, it would be more of a, I've seen it. I feel like I've done Forza Motorsport.
Unless they can introduce something here coming down the home stretch that really changes things, like,
Yeah,
that's just how it
like
is.
what if there's some even it doesn't even have to be a change to actually the racing gameplay. It could just be something that, like a way of presentation or a way of hooking you into the career mode that makes me like care about what happens next. I'm not sure what that would be.
I mean, this game is flipping gorgeous, though.
Oh,
I mean, watching the B-roll, I just
amazing.
kept catching new things like every time. Like there was one time where there was a fin on the back of a car, and I watched the sun dance all the way across the fin as it went around a
As
turn.
it vibrates from the road,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, it's incredible.
It's pretty
But
amazing.
You know what you don't need to do to see that? Play the game.
Yeah, you're right. You can watch a trailer. You can watch GameFace, and you're good. It'll be interesting, though. It'll be to see how this game does, because it's been a while since Motorsport 7.
One of the other things that I'm interested in is like, you know, I know Turn 10 isn't working on it, but I'm sure they're working hand in hand with Playground on a bunch of things anyway, I guess because the franchises are related. I'm looking at some of the human characters in this and thinking, like, is this any kind of foreshadowing of what we're going to see in Fable?
Oh.
How much
I hope
how much
not.
improvement have we gotten on the human? Because remember that the people in the older Forza games are woo.
Well, Fable stylizes its humans
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
but I mean,
so.
people made fun of Gran Turismo for having the cardboard cutout audience members for so many years, but like some of that was maybe preferable to some of the stuff we got in Forza in terms of 3D animation. It was honestly embarrassing at times.
So, by the way, this is Forza 7. So this is a game before this one. I just wanted to pull up some B-roll so we could get a comparison.
Is this Xbox One?
This is, yeah.
As the launch game Xbox?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever played this.
Oh, really?
Because I didn't buy it when it came
No.
out.
It still looks damn
Looks pretty
good.
Yeah, it still looks all right. Especially because it's so scalable. Like you put it on you put it on a Series X, and it looks even better.
Yeah. I mean,
It doesn't look like what we just saw, but
it looks pretty damn good, dude.
It's up there. I mean, it needs the ray tracing, but it still looks nice.
I mean, are what we seeing, is that a $550 upgrade, what we're seeing with the new game?
No,
I don't know.
I mean maybe. Like depends what you care about. you
Yeah.
know? Like if that's your thing, if you want just these ultra realistic car.
I mean, just look at this. I mean, it looks damn good. Like the sun's dancing across the bodies on this too, and I know
the
that
lighting's there. It's flatter.
Yeah, it is
it's
flatter.
definitely flatter.
Yep.
And I mean, you can totally tell that those clouds are not procedurally generated volume. I don't know.
you can definitely tell it's
The
a
sky could be a
skybox.
photo for all I know. I don't know. I look at it 3 times in a race, and it's about. If you're looking at the sky, you're not looking at the track, and you're going to lose.
Yeah. So as good as the new Forza looks, it's not that much advanced from what we had before.
Yeah, I mean, it is very much. It's Madden's shinier helmets this year,
Or rounder helmets.
Yeah, it happens to come out every.
They're round this time. I mean, you're right though. I mean, this is flatter, and some of it has to do with the weather. This is like an overcast
Yeah, it's
day.
an overcast day, but there is. I mean, it does make a difference.
Yeah.
It just I don't know if it makes, and it makes a difference in terms of what you want to download from Game Pass, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, without that, I think I would struggle to be, particularly interested in just a much prettier racing game. That's the other problem with the circuit stuff. Is I've raced these tracks like hundreds
I know
of
them.
times.
I now know them by heart.
Yeah, like there's nothing to learn anymore.
I know. That's why they need to get out and find some new areas to race. But anyway, that's Forza Motorsport. It's coming this year, but we do not have a hard release date for it yet. Next up, definitely the biggest surprise from the Direct. A game that none of us saw coming. A game called Hi-Fi Rush from Tango Softworks, Shinji Mikami's development studio. It is a music and rhythm hack and slash with a tasteful adaptation of anime, Matt.
Yeah.
Go figure.
There is, if anyone, where we criticize the Square stuff and the anime grunting and like the weird dialogue editing and all the stuff that Square does all the time and the Final Fantasy VII Remake and all that stuff. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
This is how you do anime style and sensibility stuff and adapt it to a modern presentation, a global, worldwide friendly presentation. This is it. This like everything in this, all the humor, all the visual style, all is rooted in anime and slapstick anime like comedy stuff, but none of it feels weird or cringe. It's all taking into account media lessons of the last 25 years, and it all works.
Yeah.
And it's astounding. I'm not too far into this game. Because it shadow dropped.
Yeah.
That day.
It's available now
boom,
on Game Pass for free.
or
Yep.
$40 if you don't. But
Yep.
there it is.
Yeah.
I will say this: I've only played 3 levels of this. I'm like, because it is level based. Like, you go through a level, you go back to your home base, and you can level up and upgrade the character, and then go out to the next level. I have no complaints about this game.
Yeah, it's really hard to find any problems with it. Yeah.
Like, I was like, there was someone on one of the reviewers on Twitter, or somebody was on Twitter who said, well, it was a reviewer, I can't remember who it was, but they're like, I'm trying to review this and I'm kind of struggling because is this game perfect?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what?
It kind of is. Yeah.
Like, for what it wants to be and what it's trying to do,
it's hard to imagine a better.
I can't imagine doing it better.
Yeah, I agree.
It's remarkable. The only thing I can maybe think of is I would have maybe liked some kind of sync test for the latency of the display.
For the controller. Yeah.
Because you have to kind of, I mean, you can't really change the game to fit with that because you can't change all the animation in the game to lag behind the rest of the game. Mm-hmm. But it would have been nice to have a test thing that kind of told me how bad my lag was, so I could so I could know where I need to kind of adjust when I press the button. But also, they're very forgiving about that. Like, you can just hammer the button.
It still
count. Like you don't lose your combo just because you press the button between the beats.
Well, sometimes I push the button at 16th time, even though it only needs me to go 8th time or a quarter time, and
it
quarter
still
time,
counts.
and it still catches it. Yeah.
So it's not like a rhythm game where if you, like a Guitar Hero or something, where if you press the button on those between time notes, you'd lose the combo.
Right.
No, you can, if you want to just hammer the button,
you can do it.
You'll get the combo.
Yeah. And that's how the game works. Like, you literally slash and hack in time to the beat.
Every single animation in the entire game is to the beat of the music.
Yeah.
Even in this cutscene.
Yeah, it's insane.
Even the editing, even the camera moves, even his arm movement there.
Yeah.
Everything is to the beat. And if you hit the button to the beat, you will get bonus damage and bonus combo hits. If you do not, you will still do a combo and do damage. Like it's not punishing you for not getting the rhythm right. It is rewarding you for getting the rhythm right, and the baseline game still works even if you have no rhythm.
This feels like a game.
It's remarkable.
It really is. This feels like a game that was kicking around at Tango for a long time, and Bethesda was saying, nope, there's no way we're going to publish that game.
This is a dead end game in terms of like mass appeal. You're never going to, but it should, but it won't.
Yeah.
But maybe it will now that they did this with it.
Because it's basically free.
Basically free, and.
But Microsoft was like, oh, Bethesda, you wouldn't publish that, but we will.
It's like, we want content.
We need anything we can get for Game Pass.
We put that Tapestry game out, we're absolutely putting this out. Come on.
Exactly. And as it turns out, this game is like amazing.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that it brings back some very nice Jet Set memory.
It does. Absolutely. Yeah, this is the most pleasant surprise that we've had in the games industry for quite a while.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of those anymore.
We barely even knew it existed. And then it comes out and it's available as soon as the direct happens.
Yeah, that moment and through, just very nice.
Yeah.
Very well played all around, top to bottom, like no notes.
Again, this is a great direct, like in general. For their first one, I mean, they had to come out strong, and they did. They showed games that are coming out soon. They showed a game that's coming out now that turned out to be amazing. I still can't believe that this was made by the same people who make games like Ghostwire Tokyo. This will probably be more successful than Ghostwire Tokyo.
I mean, critically, it already is.
But I'm saying even sales-wise.
Maybe. I really don't know how this would sell. I'm very curious what the sales will be on this.
Is it available? It's available on PC, right?
It's on Steam, and at least on Steam.
Yeah.
It's on Steam and Game Pass on PC.
Yeah, so some people can buy it.
So if you want to pay $30 for it, you can.
You can. But again, we just recommend you subscribe to Game Pass for $15 for the month and play it and 50 other games for $15. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of Game Pass is Microsoft's loss. You should take advantage of it. But this is a pleasant surprise, to say the least, in so many ways. One, how good it is. Two, how different the concept is and how well executed a new concept is. And three, who it's coming from. If you showed me this game, Tango would have been one of the last developers I would have guessed made this game. So, really, really cool stuff. Hi-Fi Rush. And if you're a Game Pass subscriber, it is available right now for free. Pretty amazing. And then the rest of the direct...
Not bad, guys who made Evil Within.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane.
Like, what? Why did you waste your time with that shit when you could have been doing this already?
It's pretty crazy, yeah. Eth Demon says it's also made by a lot of the people who made Beautiful Joe. This is like an all-star
this is like a super group.
Yeah, this is like... This is like We Are the World for video games.
Yeah, this is like the all the people that made the stuff you like the most in the PS2 era of Capcom. Here they are.
They're still working. They're still doing stuff. And
this does kind of feel like if this does feel almost PS2 era.
A little beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a little bit of but it's also like so many games from Capcom and from a lot of like kind of Japanese studios, and especially with the hack and slash stuff, that they always, it's like, okay, we're gonna do a hack and slash game, but with this twist,
right?
It's gonna do, but usually that twist is just
something
fucking
stupid,
annoying.
Yeah.
But the twist on this is not just not annoying; it's cool. And even if you do find it annoying, you don't have to do it.
You don't. Yeah.
You
can still play it.
You just play a really colorful, kinetic like game with great music,
with an interesting plot, full of crazy characters
and cool characters. Like, it's been interesting to see. I mean, we obviously don't agree with the idea that the Forspoken banter is bad.
Yeah.
But this game is a masterclass in how to do goofy banter.
Yeah, without being offensive.
And make it feel all kind of click.
Yeah. Yeah, they did a really good job. It's an anomaly.
I mean, this character could have been an idiot. The character is an idiot, but he could have been really unlikable. He could have been a problem and abrasive, and he's not.
Yeah, like, I don't mind the character at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Even when like he meets the Peppermint, the girl who is like your handler, the tech girl, they both accuse each other of being like media cliches.
Right.
Because she's like a loner hacker who doesn't need the world, and he's like a two-time loser who finally gets a chance to prove himself.
Where did this game come from?
I don't know. Somebody wasn't paying attention and gave somebody a workstation, and then it was too late.
Shniki's asking what the genre of music is. It's like rock.
Yeah, general rock.
Like, it starts out, I thought it was going to have licensed music at first, because it starts out with a song from the Black Keys.
Yeah, the Black Keys.
Lonely Boy, or whatever it's called.
9 Inch Nails shows up later for a boss fight. And stuff. Like, it has a mix of licensed tracks for big moments and original music for kind of the general levels.
Yeah, and the original music is just generic rock music.
That's what it does remind me a little bit of, like, what you'd hear in, like, something like Jet Set Radio. Mm-hmm. Although Jet Set Radio had more verve to the music choices.
A little more electronic too.
More electronic, more lyrics, but it's catchy. It's all very catchy.
Yeah, I thought the music was good. Not the original stuff for the game isn't outstanding, but it's good. Like, you don't notice it. You're not like, oh god, this song is so terrible. Like, and it does, as Matt mentioned, there is some licensed stuff sprinkled in throughout the game, so you still get some of that stuff. So again, it's basically free as long as you subscribe to Game Pass. I don't know why anyone wouldn't be doing it at this point unless they don't own a PC or an Xbox. That's the only excuse you have to not spend $15 a month on Game Pass. It's just a no-brainer. The rest of the Direct, not as compelling.
Yeah.
Minecraft Legends, they announced the release date for that. It's coming on April 18th. I was kind of surprised that it has a story-driven campaign. I kind of thought it might be one of those mission-by-mission things where there's just like a little bit of a text bubble that pops up.
What is this his established character? What is that his nose? Like, what am I looking at there?
Yeah, it's supposed to be his nose. You know, I'm about as well-versed in Minecraft as you are, Matt. No. So don't ask me too many more questions. I won't have any answers for you. But I'm
so confused by some of the Minecraft. Like, when I was looking up, like, you know, PC games that show ray tracing really good to see and like the number one on a bunch of lists is Minecraft with the ray tracing turned on. I'm like, okay, no.
I mean, the art style, I could see where it might be kind of cool, but
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you there. They did introduce there's a PvP mode coming to this, which was kind of the big announcement for the Direct, where you build a base and then lay siege to the opposing team's forces. It's coming to Game Pass, of course, PC Game Pass, Windows, and then Xbox. It's also coming to PlayStation 5 and 4 and Nintendo Switch. So this is one game that Microsoft is not keeping to itself.
Yeah, Microsoft does that. I don't know why everybody's so worried about
other stuff,
about Call of Duty and all this. It's like, if there's more money in it, leaving it on the other platforms, Microsoft will absolutely leave it on the other platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it's proven it over and over again already. I mean, I don't know what more proof anybody needs. And then the last thing that they showed was the Elder Scrolls Online Necrom, which is a new expansion that's launching in June. And that was pretty much the first ever Direct from Xbox and Bethesda. And imagine, Matt, once they get Activision in there, these directs are going to be insane. I mean, it's basically like a little mini E3, like every time they publish one of these, because they have that many developers now. It's crazy.
Yeah, they just need to start getting them out.
Yeah, and I think that's going to start happening pretty soon. Redfall, obviously, is one of the first. So,
no, I think this, like I've said, this year is going to be where you finally start to see all those developer purchases pay off for Microsoft, or start to pay off.
Yep. What letter grade would you give the Direct?
I'll give it like a B.
Yeah, I'll give it a B+. They showed 2 games we were waiting for information on, blew 2 of them out pretty hardcore, gave us a 3rd game that we didn't think we cared about until we played it because they shadow dropped it. Like, that's a pretty damn good Direct, no matter who's doing it.
Yeah.
And then a couple smaller things to kind of finish it off. So, yeah, I'll give it a B+. I thought it was pretty good. Still want to leave some room for improvement because there is going to be improvement. As some of these big studios, I mean, they're probably going to do a whole Direct just for Starfield, be my guess.
I would be shocked if they didn't.
So, big stuff
at the very least, like a big Starfield blowout and then like a couple of smaller things coming in the summer or something.
Yep. The timing of this is interesting, too. This Direct launches, and then like the next day or 2 later, we find out that everyone's bailing on E3. So, a little bit of harbinger of things to come there.
Don't need it.
Yeah. So there you go. That
like when you can reach the same number of people with that Direct just on a random day in January.
Yeah.
Why?
Why not? Yeah, why would you do it? Why would you spend the money? Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next. The final 2023 preview is at hand. I mentioned last week that we might do indies, and we are going to do indies. Now, there are literally hundreds of indie games coming out this year, and I cut it down to like 9. And we're not going to spend that much time on each one because they are indie games. And intrinsically, I know some people will argue with me about this. There is just built-in lower interest for indie games. That's just all there is to it.
Lower third.
Oh, do I have it wrong? Oh, so I jumped out of order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't sure if you were skipping it or if we were...
Well, no. I have another topic that we are going to skip. We're going to come back to the next one after this. We'll just continue on with the indie stuff. So anyway, this is our final 2023 preview. It is indie games, and I have looked at dozens and dozens of indie games over the last 4 days, and I cut it down to like 8 or 9 that I really want to focus on. The first one we're going to look at is a game called Season, A Letter to the Future. Matt, have you seen this before?
No.
It features a story of a young person leaving home for the first time before a cataclysm washes everything away. It's kind of a road trip game, but instead of in a car, it's on a bike. And then a lot of the game mechanics in this game are documenting the road trip using photos, videos, and things like that. Like I was talking earlier about, the lack of innovation in our industry anymore. So when I looked at these indie games, I tried to find stuff that really looked different to me. And this, of all the indie games coming out this year, really looked to be something that was breaking the mold and not doing something really, everything else was. If you're
shaking up the walking simulator by giving him a bike.
And a scrapbook.
Scrapbooking him. Pokemon Snap for a ruined world.
Yeah. Yeah, this is an interesting game. It's coming to PS4, PS5, and PC. And the crazy part is, it's out today. It literally came out today. I'm not sure how much it's retailing for. I probably should have checked that, but I didn't. But it is available starting today. And again, as someone who looked through a lot of indie games coming out this year, it is one of the more unique and the more interesting. Next up, a game that we've talked about at least once before, a game called Sons of the Forest. It is...
I've heard of this.
I
can't remember what it is, though.
It's a sequel to the game called The Forest.
Oh, okay.
It's basically a first-person survival shooter, except this one mixes in horror. The first game, The Forest, did okay with critics. People praised it for its world building and creating a convincing world, but they docked it for the actual gameplay as far as like the shooting is concerned. This is, as I said, the follow-up. Your objective is you must survive a supernatural forest after a helicopter crash. The Forest is from 2014, so they've had a lot of time to really work on this game, so I would assume that it should be better than the last one. And again, The Forest reviewed pretty well in general, so this is definitely one to keep an eye on. As we mentioned in last week's show, these open-world survival shooters have become it's their own cottage industry in PC gaming. They've become really big, so it'll be interesting to see how this one does, because it does have a lot of competition. But this one also is a survival shooter with a little bit more of a modern edge to it. It's not like dinosaurs. You're not sent off into some weird, far-flung fantasy world or whatever. It is fantasy, or at least sci-fi, because there are crazy...
Those demons and stuff.
Yeah, there's stuff going on in the woods, for sure, that are hard to explain if you check out the B-roll right there. So there's some mystery involved in the game as well, and as I said, I'm not a big fan of that genre, but that one at least looks a lot more interesting to me. Next up, a game called Spiritfall. This is a 2D roguelite, and the combat, as you can probably tell already, is inspired by platform fighters like Smash Brothers. Their tagline is slash, smash, launch, and wall splat, a multitude of enemies using the ever-changing arsenal of divine powers. So if you're a big Smash Brothers fan, you're burnt out on the latest release, and I wouldn't blame you at this point. You've been playing it for quite a while. This is a single-player game that utilizes a lot of the same muscle memory and mechanics and ideas behind games like Smash Brothers. So if you're a fan of that subgenre of fighting games, but you'd like more of a single-player twist, because let's be honest, Smash Brothers still has not really created a compelling single-player campaign after all this time. I know some people may argue with me on that, but...
Yeah, but the first one they did was okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Was that GameCube?
Yep.
The Subspace Emissary?
Yeah. That was the first one that had a real single-player campaign. And it was okay.
It was
but
the source of, for a long time, the longest work of English literature ever written.
Really?
So there was a Smash Brothers fan fiction is the longest written work in English. It was something like 6 volumes. It was ridiculous. It was like 10 times longer than War and Peace.
Rock and Roll 458 says that was Subspace Emissary was in Brawl for the Wii. Yep. It's hard. Honestly, it's hard to keep track of the Smash Brothers games and what was in each one. At least I struggle with that. So anyway,
the only thing I remember about Brawl is the one where you can trip. And that was a terrible idea.
Oh, yeah. That didn't last either.
No.
They got rid of that.
Everybody hated it. Everybody hated it.
Yep. Next up, a game that I think both Matt and I are really excited for. It's a game called Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. Sorry. Mm-hmm. It's coming for Switch and PC, and it's coming in the summer. By the way, I should have mentioned Spiritfall is coming in March, and it's for PC and Mac. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is kind of a Jet Set Radio tribute. Radio.
For sure.
It was supposed to come out last year, but it ended up being delayed, and now it's scheduled for summer, as I said.
I did appreciate Phil Spencer noting that they tried to get Jet Set Radio Future working on the backwards compatibility and could not get it.
Yeah.
Although he wasn't specific whether it was a tech thing or a music licensing thing.
Yep.
But at least they tried.
But if you're a fan of those classic Dreamcast games, this is about as close as you're going to get to a sequel in 2023.
One Dreamcast game. The other one was Xbox.
You're right. I forgot about that. You're right. It was just the first one was on Dreamcast. So yeah, as you can see, it does mix up the disciplines. Jet Set was just all inline skating, but this has BMX biking, it has skateboarding, also inline skating, and like Jet Set Radio, it also has an awesome soundtrack.
It's the Riders Republic of Jet Set Radio.
Yeah. You're right. That's a good way to put it. That was an underappreciated game, actually, Riders Republic.
That one goes on sale for like $20 periodically. I keep thinking about getting it just because you raved about it so much.
It's really good, yep. If you're into extreme sports games at all, it's definitely the one to get. And then the best part about it is the music in this game is composed by Hideki Naganuma. I think is how you say his name. Naganuma?
Jet Set Radio guy.
Yeah, he's the Jet Set Radio guy.
Used to head Wave Master.
Right. Yeah, which is that little subset inside
the subset in Sega that did all the music.
Yep.
They were exceptional. Like that was another, much like the
Did
Capcom
they do Space Channel 5 as well?
They did.
Yeah.
They were like, that was much like the Capcom teams at the time. It was like, that was one of those like one moment in time, like it's never going to get any better than this. You have a magical group of people all in the same place doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Moment with Wave Master. That was unbelievable work. Like every time it was incredible.
Yep. But again, this is coming to Switch and PC. My guess is eventually that comes to more platforms.
I would think so, yeah.
Regardless of how well it sells, I think it'll eventually come to other platforms. But again, that's Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, and it's coming this summer to Switch and PC. Next up, a game called Sea of Stars. This is coming to Mac, Switch, PlayStation 4 and 5, and PC. It's coming in the middle of the year. It is a prequel to The Messenger. Do you remember that game, Matt?
Yeah.
It's set in the same location, but it's thousands of years earlier. So it's kind of like a mega prequel, ultra prequel.
Yeah, I backed this on Kickstarter.
Oh, you did?
It turned out.
It was finally coming out.
I forgot about that, but I did do that.
It's kind of like a Chrono Trigger style JRPG.
Yeah, it's definitely inspired by Chrono Trigger, Secret of Evermore kind of thing.
With the objective of trying to take the tedium out of those games, which a lot of people have complained about in the past.
An admirable goal.
Yep. It centers around two heroes named Valerie and Zale, who use the power of the sun and moon to fight against an alchemist. It's an equal mix of puzzle solving and turn-based combat. Again, it's a JRPG, so no surprise there. And players can control up to 6 characters. As I said, it's inspired by other games like Breath of Fire is very similar, and Chrono Trigger. It also features sailing mechanics, tons of side quests, and the combat is focused around kind of elemental weaknesses of enemies. So if you're looking for a good JRPG to play on the cheap, again, that is coming out in mid-2023 for pretty much everything but Xbox, which hardly ever happens anymore. It's kind of weird. But for whatever reason, especially with Game Pass, like every indie now is like, oh yeah, Xbox, we're definitely making an Xbox version of hopes of getting on Game Pass to get rich basically from Game Pass. Next up, a game called Gestalt, Steam and Cinder. So, surprise, surprise, it's a steampunk game. Never would have guessed that. This one's coming to Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. It's scheduled for 2023. No hard date for it yet. I realized when I was doing a preview for indie games for 2023 that I needed to find one 2D hack and slash. Find the best one that I could find out of all of them and use that one in this segment. And this is the game that I found that I thought looked to be the best in that genre. Again, steampunk setting. It's set in the city of Canaan. The 2D platforming and the combat are just as important as its twist-laden narrative. Again, this is coming straight from the developers. You set out to uncover dangerous truths. It said it's inspired by 16 and 32-bit classics. Surprise, surprise. And it fuses tight 2D platforming and exhilarating combat with an engrossing, twist-laden narrative in a stunningly handcrafted steampunk world. Join Lethea and a vibrant cast of characters as they race to discover the secrets of the steam city of Canaan. Canaan. C-A-N-A-A-N.
That's Canaan.
Is it?
Yeah. That's
so
like the
there's a
city.
town.
It's like the ancient city Canaan.
Oh, there's a town in Pennsylvania that's spelled exactly the same way, and it's pronounced Canaan.
Yeah, well, you can't go by East Coast pronunciations and shit. I mean, you've been to Massachusetts. None of that shit makes any sense.
Yep.
Wooster, give me a break. Why are the letters even there?
Clobber the armies of the clockwork golems and hunt horrors that slither through the depths once forgotten. Thwart the twisted schemes of Canaan? Is that what you said?
Canaan. It's like a biblical city.
Corrupt overseers and nefarious comitium. So anyway, it sounds like another one of those games that has a lot more story that then when you play it, you're like, wait, what happened to that story? It's just a bunch of text bubbles on screen. But as far as the combat, the art style, things like that, I thought it really stood out compared to all the other. And there are plenty of other 2D hack and slashes.
Oh, it looks really good. Like this, and I can't remember the name. What's the one? I think it's Microsoft. It's like the Blade Runner-y looking one.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
The hand-to-hand combat, not sword hack and slash, but you know what I'm talking about. Yes, we just talked about it on that preview. But that one and this one are the best, like the ones that really like make
stand out.
Ooh, that looks cool. And I'm not a
steam. That game get replaced. Swanland got it.
That's right.
That's it.
I'm not a steampunk person usually, but that does look pretty good.
Yep, absolutely. Next up, a game called Hollow Body. It's a survival horror game from developer Headwear Games. It's inspired by early 2000s horror. I'm not exactly sure what that means, Matt. Are you?
What, like a big fan of Blue Stinger?
Right.
Like, what does that mean?
I don't know what that means.
I mean, technically, I guess Resident Evil 4 is early 2000s, sort of?
I guess.
That's 2005. That's mid-2000s.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't either.
Silent Hill?
Maybe.
Silent Hill was the dominant.
Yeah.
That Silent Hill 2 was... Silent Hill 2 2001.
Yeah.
That's early 2000s.
Maybe that's what he's talking about. I mean, it does look a little bit, I guess.
Kinda.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe don't pigeonhole yourself quite that much, I would say. That would be my main advice there.
Yeah. You play as a character named Mika, and this is for PC only right now, who lives in a futuristic world racked by decay where you're an unlicensed shipper working for an infamous ring of black market freelancers. So it's a little
funny
bit...
how the rise of Amazon has led to sort of the subgenre of like package delivery person is sort of the main hero of these weird worlds. Like I know some of that comes from Snow Crash, but still.
You get stranded in the exclusion zone with limited resources, and you've got to get out of the sealed-off, horrifying world.
I guess Silent Hill does really look like what they're taking from here.
Yeah.
Hitting things with a stick, walking slowly through a town.
Yeah. So maybe it does make sense ultimately. But again, that is called Hollow Body.
Silent Hill.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they don't want to. They're afraid they'll get sued by Konami, and maybe they have a legitimate concern there because it is Konami.
Well, Konami never. Of all the ways Konami tried to milk Silent Hill, they never tried to make a cyberpunk version.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Again, this is only for PC as of right now, and is coming in 2023. And then the last game that we want to share with you today for our 2023 indie preview is a game called Terra Nil. This is a game from Devolver, which I'll just be honest with you, pretty much every game from Devolver I pay attention to. I check it out. I generally look through their entire roster because it's just they're kind of like the Rockstar of indie game publishers. They always seem to find like the more interesting concepts, and this is kind of out of character for them. This is an eco-focused game where the objective is to save the world, basically. Plants, reroute water, irrigate, all that kind of stuff to turn the world green again. And I don't generally like heavy-handed eco stuff, but this seems unique to me. And again, because Devolver has a hand in it, usually their games have some kind of a little hidden twist.
It seems kind of satisfying.
Yep, just watching this stuff transform. Yeah, it's kind of like Power Wash Simulator, isn't it?
A little bit.
But
how weird is it? Have you seen some of the DLC that thing's getting?
No.
They've got Tomb Raider and Final Fantasy VII DLC now. You wash Lara's mansion and Cloud's motorcycle. Like, what a weird tale.
Who would have ever guessed that game would do what it's done? But again, that shows the power of Game Pass a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
Again, this is called Terra Nil, and it's only for PC right now, and it's coming out in 2023. And that's it for our little miniature indie game preview. I realize a lot of you guys don't care that much about indie games.
Yeah, there's all these. Ayuden Chronicles might make it this year.
I almost included it. But I've struggled to call it indie, but then I was like, but it was crowdfunded, so by default it would be indie.
Oh, yeah.
But we've talked about that game so much, I wanted to really focus on stuff we haven't touched on.
Also, like, I'm a backer on that one, too, but is that going to come out this year? They say mid-20, but I don't know. I really don't know.
And we talked about other indie games in our previews, Hollow Knight, Silk Song, and things like that, but I just really wanted to focus on some of the stuff that we haven't focused on in GameFace prior. So there you go. That's your look at some of the bigger, cooler games coming to the indie scene in 2023. Next up, we're going to talk about some place that Matt went. So you guys, if you're on YouTube, if you're into games and you're on YouTube, this has undoubtedly been shoved into your feed over the last 2 weeks. Everybody has been going to check out Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios here in LA.
It's unusual because it's not even open yet.
Yeah, it actually opens on February 17th, and I'm not going to be there on launch day.
No, it's because the reservations filled up in 3 seconds.
I've already seen footage of this just from these preview days, and it's too crowded. It's crazy how many people have already gone to this thing. Which makes me think that maybe by mid-March I might be able to go and check it out without too much hassle.
Maybe. I mean, certainly by May or so.
Yep.
I don't think it's going to... They're going to do the reservation system for a while, but I don't think it's going to last because there's not actually that much to do.
But Matt already went and checked it out. Mm-hmm. What did you think of it, Matt?
It's cool. There's not much to it. It's about the size of... what you call it? It's about the size of Toontown in Disneyland.
Really?
Yeah, it's not that big. But you do go into it, and it makes a very good first impression. Like you walk through, when you get to, if you've ever been to Universal Studios Hollywood, you basically walk towards the Transformers ride, and instead of going on the Transformers ride, you take a left. And there's a big pipe, like a horizontal pipe, and with a tunnel, and it says Super Mario World. Or Super Nintendo World, which is a misnomer because there's nothing in it but Mario stuff.
Is it really? Is it called Super Nintendo World?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Super Mario World.
No, it's Super Nintendo World or Super Nintendo Land.
Okay. Well, I mean, they're smart because that opens it up to everything.
Yeah, I don't know how you rebrand any of this, though, because it's all Mario.
Yeah.
Like, it's pure Mario.
Yeah.
And you go through the pipe and you come out into the interior of Peach's castle, and you walk through there and you come out into Super Mario World.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other way to describe. Like, you're in a fully contained sort of loop, like circular area, and it's divided up into about 7 or 8 panels, and each panel is a different kind of environment of a Mario world. And like there's there's the stacked like rectangular ground blocks of like Mario World, and there's the desert with the wiggly cactus guys, and there's Yoshi running around a tree, and there's all like it's just everything you can think of Mario related is there. Looking around Bowser's castle, all this, and there's coins everywhere, and they all spin, and everything's moving, and it's remarkable.
Don't you get like a wristband when you go in?
You will. We didn't.
Oh, okay.
But I was there for an employee preview thing.
Gotcha.
But yeah, there will be a wristband that kind of has an electronic thing. Because when I say there's not much to do, there's 3 things to do in the land, really. There's the ride, which is Mario Kart. There's a cafe, like a little cafe with Mario-themed food, which we didn't get to try because they only have sit-down service there, and you can't get anything to go. And that filled up instantly in the morning. So, basically, if you weren't one of the people that got reservations for the rest of the day, you didn't get to eat in the cafe, in Toad's Cafe.
Man.
Which is like... What world are you in that you don't give a takeaway option for that? Because that is obviously going to fill up. It's a table
what the
service.
hell?
Ridiculous.
That's weird,
Absolutely
dude.
ridiculous. Vincent says you can buy the wristband. I didn't see the wristband on sale. Or I might not have been paying attention. I don't know.
I saw that the wristbands, once you get one, there's all these things there that you can interact with, right?
Yeah, that's the third thing is there's little mini games everywhere. And so you go little touch screens. And so you go in and you have your wristband and you do the little thing and you complete it. And if you complete it, you get a key. And I think if you get 3 keys, you get to do a boss game of some kind.
Now, they said that I think the bands also work as amiibo.
Maybe.
I think you can take them back and put them on the reader on your Switch, and it actually.
I would not surprise me if there was some kind of connection there. Yeah.
But you said there's only one ride.
Yeah, there's just Mario Kart. There may be a second, I think a Yoshi ride they were talking about putting in later, but right now it's just Mario Kart.
Wow.
And I will say this. The line was about 90 minutes, maybe less than
to ride the Mario Kart.
Ride the Mario Kart. That's where we just beeline there and did that. The line is amazing. You wind through the bottom and go up all these stairs and down these stairs and back up, and then you go up through the top thing, which gives you all these great vistas of the park, and then you go into Bowser's mouth, into his castle, and see all his stuff, and there's a big statue of him, and you go through his laboratory where he's designing the carts and stuff, and there's holographic boos that fly around, and the little fire, the fire pit is all the little fire ball things. It's really good. If you can think of it Mario related, it is in here.
Wow.
It is there. All the different environments, and they're playing really cool remixes of the game themes, from Bowser's Castle theme, the Super Mario World airship theme, or the underground theme. You go through a section, it's all underground with crystals and mushrooms everywhere.
Yeah.
It's very cool. If you're a fan of Mario, you're going to recognize tons of stuff, and now you're standing in the middle of it, and the theming quality on this is on a level that Universal normally does not do.
Wow. How long did it take to get through the line?
It took I'd say about 50 minutes. It said 90 minutes, but I think it was more like an hour.
Okay, so you get through it pretty quick then.
It wasn't that bad for an opening day thing. It wasn't opening day, it was employee preview day, but it was still not nothing. It will be less entertaining after you've already seen the line a couple times.
Right.
And then the Mario Kart thing, it's fascinating. This was actually also fascinating because I didn't really know anything about the Mario Kart ride. Normally when I go into these theme park rides, I know everything about the ride before I do it. I'm pretty aware of what it is. All I knew is you probably sat on a Mario Kart, and that was it. And you go in, and basically the premise is that Bowser is holding a kart race showdown, just like always. And it's Team Mario versus Team Bowser. And so you're Team Mario, the guests.
The people who ride
Mario.
it are Team Mario.
And so what happens is as you go in closer, you end up in these little it's like a TV master control room, and that's where you get a briefing on sort of everything. And all the briefing stuff is done without language, without any. They're just showing you visually how you're supposed to. And I still wasn't quite sure because they're showing you steer with the steering wheel, and there's buttons, and you can shoot shells with that. I'm like, okay, but are we steer? It's a track, it's a roller coaster, right? So I wasn't quite sure what they were. And there's 4 people to a car. Mm-hmm. So you get it, and so we go wind through, and they give you these headband things, and so you put this headband thing with a little Mario cap sort of thing on it, and you're like, okay, I guess we got headbands on for motion tracking or something.
Yeah.
And then when you get in the vehicle, there are visors with big shields on them that you plug in, like you magnetically...
Almost like a COVID shield that some of the old people wear.
It looks like a COVID shield, yeah. But it's an AR screen.
Oh, wow.
So you plug it into the top of your visor thing, and so now what it is when you so the you can shoot shells, and it shoots them where you're looking.
Oh.
So the ride is you're on a track, and it's sort of like Astro Blasters or like the Spider-Man ride, in the sense that like it's a shooting gallery, and so you go along on a track in a.
So you're not really racing and steering, or
you can steer. Like it pops up little arrows in the AR thing, and everybody in the car has to turn that direction.
Oh, okay.
And if you get hit by things, it'll spin. Like it does if you get hit by a shell in the
like
game
in Mario Kart.
Yeah. And so the environment and where you are is physical, but all the racers are AR.
Okay.
So all the characters that are coming on are AR, and the power-up boxes and everything are AR. So the gimmick is everybody's got their individual score for coins. You get coins for picking up coins on the track when you're steering. You get coins for hitting enemies with the shells. You pick up shells when you pick up the boxes, just like in the game. And you shoot when you aim. So the trick is if you shoot bad guys, Team Bowser, you get coins. If you shoot Team Mario people, you lose coins.
Oh, okay.
The general
so it's a plus minus thing.
The general rule of thumb is if you get more than 100 coins, you did okay.
Okay.
I got 229.
Damn. They're gonna bring you in for testing.
The max score for the day at that point was like 340.
Oh, geez. Wow.
So you go through a bunch of things that are basically covering every major environment of the Mario Kart games. It's a little slow.
Yeah.
Like it's clearly for younger kids in a lot of ways. I was a little overwhelmed by all the things happening. I was like, oh, it's AR. Oh, I got to aim. Oh, I got to steer. It's clearly something that I think you'd get better at by practicing, or maybe I'm just
probably your second time you double your score.
Oh, for sure, probably up there, yeah.
Yeah.
And like you have to get used to the idea that it's only where you look that something's happening, and then but going through all this stuff is pretty cool. And then the big finale, of course, is Rainbow Road, and that looks amazing. It's fun. I wish it was faster. I wish it was a little more interactive, because like the steering doesn't actually really do a whole lot.
Was it worth the 50-minute wait?
No.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
But for once,
yeah.
Like would I wait 50 minutes again? Probably not.
Would you go back to Super Nintendo World again?
No, but I would consider it like a worthy inclusion to a day at Universal.
I've seen the video footage. You come out of the tunnel, and then it's just like a square, and that's pretty much it, right?
That's it. Yeah. It's in the middle,
and that's kind of disappointing.
It's really cool. When
it looks
see
awesome.
It in person. Like when you see it in person, you're like, oh wow, like they did it up.
But it's so small.
It is small. But like
especially when you have like the Harry Potter world that's to compare it to.
But also Harry Potter World is bigger, but Harry Potter World's empty.
Is it?
Like, there's not much in there. Like there's the ride.
Are people not going in there anymore?
They are. I don't mean it's empty and that there's nobody in there. I mean there's not much to do.
There's a lot of There's
there's a couple shops and the wand thing and the two rides in back. And the bar and the restaurant.
That's still a lot more than Nintendo World.
Yeah, but there's not much else. I mean, restaurant. They have a restaurant and the wand shop, and the one roller coaster and the Fantastic Voyage Journey thing, whatever, and like a little stage where people perform stuff. Super Nintendo Land pretty much has the same thing. Like they only have one ride, but they'll probably have another one eventually. They have a restaurant. And they have a gift shop
that you couldn't get any food from.
No, they have a gift shop. You come out through the one.
How's the gift shop?
Really?
I mean,
it's tons of Mario
That's
stuff.
disappointing.
I mean, it's tons and tons of Mario stuff. I don't care about Mario.
Yeah.
Like the
kids will though.
One of my friends who was with us, like her brother collects like exclusive Mario stuff and theme park stuff, and she bought a bunch of stuff for him because stuff you can only get at the theme park.
Yeah.
Like if you love Mario stuff, you're gonna find a shirt you like for a character you like. I guarantee you they're in there somewhere, or a figure, or a stuffed animal, or something. Like they cover the whole spectrum on Mario stuff, but that's it. It's not Nintendo World. It's Mario.
Yeah.
If there was like a bunch of Zelda or Metroid
that's why I thought it was Super Mario World, because it's all Mario.
No, it is all Mario.
Yeah, there's no Zelda or anything in there.
No, I mean I wish there was.
Yeah.
I would be more interested.
Maybe that's what the second ride will be.
Maybe I don't. You'd have to retheme some stuff because it's all Mario.
Yeah, it's the Mushroom Kingdom when you go in there.
Yeah, and like I mean, look, it's amazing to go in there and see that. I mean, even as someone who does not care about Mario all that much, you go and you're like, wow. wow.
Yeah.
Like that, especially
to see it all there,
especially because
moving and-
Universal. Like, I mean, I don't want to bash Universal, but like, it ain't Disney. You know?
It's not.
But it's, you know,
But so many people go there. They come to LA.
but
It's
they
like
stepped up for the
someplace everyone goes.
They stepped up for the Harry Potter stuff.
They
And the
did,
Harry Potter
yeah.
stuff is very good. And a Galaxy's Edge kind of raised the bar again, and they fired back with this one. Like, this is immersive. Like, you're in this world in a way like only really Galaxy's Edge matches.
Okay,
like
that's
it's
impressive.
very good. And the key is, and this is one thing that didn't come across in the still photos of the thing, because like, okay, cool. I said everything is moving. Like, the whole land is so kinetic. Like,
I've seen
stuff's
moving it.
moving and happening.
Like when you walk out of that tunnel, it's just stuff going everywhere. Yeah.
The thwomps dropping and shooting steam out when they land, and like there's the kids running around, jumping up and hitting blocks that are like ding ding, ding. Like it's all there.
That's
like right
cool.
in front. It's cool. Like it's really cool. And
But
like,
not where somebody's traveling from like New York out to here to go to it.
Well, I mean, if you travel from New York out to here, you'd spend one. I mean, you can do the entire Universal Studios Hollywood Park in half a day.
You can easily.
Well, I have multiple times ridden every ride in the park in an afternoon.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, we're done. Let's go.
Everybody who visits me here goes there.
It's
and
fun.
then they always
Yeah, it's
come
fun.
back and they're like, it kind of sucked.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
but
I
it's-
told you it kind of sucked.
But it's also kind of fun. You can just go for a day
Yeah.
and do some stuff.
Get
and
sunburned.
Get sunburned.
Eat
And
some overpriced food.
And it was a little, it was kind of a half day for us because Jurassic World was closed and like a bunch of stuff was being, and it was a little crowded because there were people there going to the Nintendo thing, but you had to go in at a certain time. So there was more people in
There's
the
a
park
rush.
than normal because they're waiting for their time. So this part's like, oh, you want to go to Transformers? Sure, Transformers. What's the wait on Transformers? 60 minutes. Fuck that. Like, I will not wait more than 20 minutes for most of the rides at Universal.
No way. It's not worth it.
It was also very cold.
Yeah.
It was like 50 degrees.
It's still cold here. This winter won't leave LA. It's pretty
No,
crazy.
it's very cold. We were on the tram and it was freezing. We did like the studio tour thing, and it was also we saw the new Nope thing. They added a Nope section
really?
to the studio tour
Interesting.
where you go through the little like carnival place. Like
I haven't seen Nope still.
Oh, it's good.
I need to see it.
Nope's great, but like this is the most underwhelming way to incorporate this in the world. Like it's like, oh, this is where like the thing happened, and like all the music comes up, and you're like, what's going to happen? Nothing. You just drive on into the Fast and the Furious section.
That's funny.
Which still is the most entertaining part of that section because I don't know. I mean, no one really
You mean the Jaws pond doesn't do it for you anymore?
No one really showed up for the film sections of the Fast and the Furious part of the ride.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've ever seen someone phone it in harder than Tyrese in that ride. It's like that man barely. And I swear. So there's a scene where he leads a bunch of girls into a party, and he's like, he's confronted by this FBI guy. And he's like, what, man? You can't shut the party down. I ironed my shirt for this. And, like, he's wearing this shirt that is so rumpled.
Yeah.
It looks like someone pulled it out of a car trunk. And I'm like, that has to be an improv because he was upset that the shirt he had to wear looks like shit.
Yeah.
Like, and, like, that's in the ride. Like, that made it to this. You only take the hat or something. I don't know.
That's funny.
Anyway, as a part of a whole day, like, kind of leisurely taking in Hollywood studios, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's another
reason.
Another reason to go, and they need those.
They do
for sure.
They do for sure.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
I just think that for the next 6 months or so, it's going to be so crowded because it's the new hotness that it's not going to be worth fighting your way in.
I'm going to try to go in March.
It wasn't super crowded as it was when I was there because it was all being controlled by people coming in at a certain time and all that stuff. And if you left after you came in, you couldn't go back in. So it's not like you had constant foot traffic. But that thing's going to fill up and be shouldered because there's only two ways. There's a one way in and one way out, and otherwise you're basically corralled in a big circle.
Yeah.
And it's going to, and the worst part was when Mario and Luigi showed up and they did their little appearance thing, and in the middle of the land sort of clogs up with people, and there's no way to get anywhere.
Yeah.
It's a lovely, charming, very impressive in terms of theming and bringing this 2D video game to life. Like I thought it was very cool. Am I begging to go back again anytime soon? Not really. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
I have a feeling I'll go once and I'll be good.
Yeah, and like if you ever go back to Universal again, like you'll be like, yeah, I'll go and check it out. Like,
with
sure.
somebody new.
Like I would like to go back and actually eat at the restaurant where you can get the Mario food, and I'm interested in that. But other than that, like I feel like I did it, and I don't really feel the need to. It's not like the Falcon ride where I do that over and over again.
Yeah.
I don't think the AR and the main ride thing come together too well on the Mario Kart thing for the most part. I think it'd be more fun for kids. And now they're having an issue where I guess you can't ride that ride if your waistline is more than 40 inches. Apparently, there's a size limit to the restraints, to the way the restraints work, and
that's making some salty people.
I'm like, oh boy, someone didn't know their audience. But
I said it nicely. It's making some angry people, Matt.
Yeah. I mean, that is a limit on most of the Universal rides. Usually, a lot of the rides have like a larger seated cars to like move in and swap. This one does not yet, at any rate. Also, I did not know until I saw people arguing about apparently 40 inches is the average waist size in America now.
Are you kidding me?
So that's just bad planning when it comes down to it.
That's horrifying.
Most of the people at least most of the parents getting on that ride are going to be about that size. Like you got to plan for that.
40-inch waist?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, there you go. There's Matt's field report from Super Nintendo World, not Super Mario World. I don't know why I kept calling it that.
Well, because it looks like Mario World. It is Mario. I mean, Mario World is the primary theme there. I mean, it looks like, it makes me think of Super Mario World, Super Mario Bros. 4. Like it's the Super Nintendo game is the largest inspiration there, I would say, especially on the walls, like the surrounding stuff. It's all Mario World stuff.
Yep.
And Mario, I will say, like the Mario Kart stuff, like covers all the things. Like you feel like they cover all the bases. Whoever made it really knew their stuff. It was interesting. We're waiting in line. And
Miyamoto.
Some of my friends, Miyamoto. You can tell Miyamoto consulted on all this stuff. Like it's all in there. Some of my friends were wondering, like, is Chris Pratt going to be the voice on the
Mario
ride?
in the ride.
And it turns out nobody's the voice on the ride because no one says anything. There's no dialogue. It's just all sound. It's like, I mean, I'm sure like there's the incidental sounds from Mario Kart where like you hear Peach going, no, but like there is no dialogue.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, an evergreen choice.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. That's GameFace 328. But before we go, we got one last thing.
OCD Master's asking what the best ride at Universal is.
There isn't one.
I mean, the best, I would say it's probably either the Harry Potter Fantastic Journey, whatever, I can't remember what it is, or Jurassic World. Jurassic World's revamp really made that ride next level.
Okay.
Like the big fight at the end. But it's still better than... it's still not as good as the Velocicoaster, from what I understand, which is in Orlando.
Okay. All right, it's time for Name That Game. It's a little game we play at the end of every episode of GameFace where I show you 5 screenshots and you guess the name of the game. You need to beat Matt. You need to guess the name of the game before him. You guys win all ties, and if you do win, you win a free game. A couple things before we get going. If you've won already this year, you cannot play. You are out. Do not guess. Do not take part. Kick your feet up. Watch everyone else play. Number 2, the chat is put onto slow mode, so you cannot just keep typing game names into the chat. You get one guess every 60 seconds, so make them count. I think that's the best job I've ever done explaining that game. And with that, we're ready to rock. And here, are you ready, Matt? Mm-hmm. Here is your first image.
Oof.
Someone may get it from that.
That does look familiar.
I'm just saying. Let's see if we get any guesses here.
Kind of looks like Horizon Zero Dawn, but it's too flat.
Not Horizon Zero Dawn. Oh my God, Veritas got it.
There, okay.
Oh my God, Monster Hunter World. The first guess from anybody.
I mean, you got to remember that people have spent a lot of time staring at that ground.
Veritas, that is amazing, dude. Wow. Oh man, you deserve like 20 rounds of applause. That's incredible. Wow, dude. That's the most impressive Name That Game win ever. Ever. Wow, man. That is great. Dude.
I don't know. I did one once that made you very mad.
Yeah.
Early.
Right. Yeah.
You know, the one, I can't remember which one I did that was that. The one that made you the most mad was Portal. When they got Portal off the close-up.
Of the art, basically, yeah. That's what I still figured out how this was going to work. Swallowin says he may have to end with the floor textures. I mean, that's insane, dude, that you got that.
You play a game long enough, you're staring at the ground texture for a long time.
You do, but I mean, it changes constantly. That is impressive, man. Great job, man. Here's the rest of them. Someone says, can we do another round? This is all I have. I only do one per episode.
He's not just pulling these from a hat.
Yeah, I have to actually do I have to do pre-production on this. Here's the second image.
Oh, yeah. Although I might have almost gone Xenoblade Chronicles X.
There's a lot of games that could have been.
That looks like a bunch of weird alien world things.
Yep, it could have been a bunch of games. Here's a third one. And there, if you see in the bottom right, you can see one of the horns from the monsters there. And that would have been like your first overt hint at what the game is. Here's the fourth one. And you can see an actual monster there on the left. It's like Club Tail. And I think the trees may have given it away for people who really played it. And then here is the fifth one, which if you didn't get it at this point, you didn't play Monster Hunter World.
Yeah.
It actually shows a creature there. But man, congratulations. That is awesome. Once again, I'll give you another round of applause because that was just amazing, man. Veritas says, I have over 1,000 hours in Monster Hunter World. That is incredible, Veritas. That's amazing. Congrats, man. That's really good. So send us a DM here on Twitch. You can send me a DM on Twitter at Dinfire. You can send Sifted a DM on Twitter at Sifted Games. You can hit me up on the site at Shane. However, you want to get at me, just let me know, and we'll get you your free code for your free game. Congratulations once again. Amazing, amazing job. We actually, since you solved that so quickly, well, we'll answer one or two questions. We're already at time, but we'll answer one or two before we go. Let's see. What do you got for us, guys? The Legacy, who just won, name that game. What's your take on James Gunn DCU Chapter 1 announcement? Matt and I talked about this right before we went live with the show. We were talking about it for like 10 minutes. Do you want to give your quick synopsis of how you feel about it?
Sure. Like, look, you give me a good Superman movie, I'm on board, but like I don't think I'm most concerned. I think about two things. First, I don't see the point of an Amanda Waller movie. I don't see the point of the creature, the animated thing you talked about. Like those feel like side projects that need to exist during a like successful cinematic universe. Like you don't start with that. Yeah. It's weird that they're
which they may never get to, by the way.
It's weird that they're kind of hamstrung by not being able to use Batman fully.
So weird.
Because they're stuck with this thing where like the Batman has its own thing going with Matt Reeves' sequel, and you can't really use Harley because she's in the stupid Joker sequel. And you're just sort of stuck doing, so now we're going to talk about a Booster Gold movie. Great. Really? Okay.
I haven't remarked yet on your Grimlock shirt, by the way, which is just amazing.
I mean, look, James Gunn himself has turned a bunch of D-list characters into household names with Guardians of the Galaxy, so it can be done. I wonder how much longer you have, how many more, team of unknown misfits, assholes, forced to form a team and then bond by Act 3 because they all allow themselves to be vulnerable in their shared trauma movies you really have in you, because that's basically Guardians. It's also what his Suicide Squad was. It's clearly what that monster thing, animated thing was. Also, they did a short of that in the DC Blue Ribbon or the Warner Brothers Blue Ribbon Animation Prestige short things, and that they did one of that property. I can't even remember what creature, something like that. I can't remember what it was, but like that's how bad it tanked. Like no one cared. Like it's a tall order. But like I guess Gal Gadot's going to continue as Wonder Woman, and Momoa's going to keep being Aquaman, and maybe Ezra Miller will continue to be Flash, depending if they get their act together. And they seem very optimistic about that. I'm like, okay, that's a weird hill to die on for this actor who maybe kidnapped someone.
What are they doing there?
Okay, I feel like you could find someone to play the Flash who isn't quite loaded down with that kind of baggage.
Might be in prison,
would not be going through quite so much court proceedings. Also, you could just have someone play Wally West, who was a way better character than Barry Allen ever was. Sorry, I said it. But we'll see what happens in Flashpoint, I guess. It sounds like the guy who directed Flashpoint might be the guy who ends up directing the Superman movie, Superman Legacy. It's interesting that like some people have been upset with Gunn for like writing so much stuff himself in Chapter 1. I'm like, look, like I get that you're upset that maybe he didn't open it up to more people or more voices or more diverse writers, but like at this point, just bring it all in and get it done.
Let him do it. I would say let him do it too.
I'm sure James Gunn has a decent Superman story in him somewhere. The guy who wrote that Guardians Holiday special has a good Superman story in him,
I think he's proven himself. I wouldn't question him at all.
No, but I think it's an uphill battle. Props to him for taking on what I think is probably an impossible task, rehabilitating the DC cinematic universe under the auspices of Warner Brothers' complete inept leadership. I think it's fascinating that the reason we're even here in the first place is because Warner Brothers Suits basically panicked over the end of the Harry Potter series and realized they needed another like killer IP blockbuster franchise, so they rushed DC into production to compete with the MCU and gave it to the worst imaginable person to make a Superman movie, Zack Snyder, who does not understand the character on a level that is almost impressive. He's probably got a good Batman movie in him, but he is not the person to give Superman to, and we proved that over and over again. So it's good luck to him.
I think it's in the best hands you could possibly. I mean, it was good news. I think it was good news for DC.
In terms of the
fans.
people who'd be willing to take the job, James Gunn is about as good as it gets. The other issue that I have, and it's not anything to do with him, it's just that he said that the model seems to be they come up with the idea and they pitch it to Warner Brothers, basically, and have them give them the money for that. That feels way too at the mercy of idiots for me. It feels like you could have a plans laid out and then you pitch one of the things in the middle of the plan and the suits say no, and now what do you do?
Yeah.
You know? Like it does not feel like he has control in the way Feige has control. And true, Feige only has control because he had such success in the early parts and before Disney even bought them. But like, I don't know. I feel like it'd be easy for some idiot who graduated with a nepotistic marketing degree to short-circuit this despite James Gunn's best efforts, and we'll see if that happens. I just hope we get the first good Superman movie in 40 years would be worth it all on its own, probably. So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe we'll get some good animation out of it because James Gunn does, value animation and thinks animation is a valid storytelling medium. Yeah. So that would be great to have kind of the DC animation has been killing it over Marvel for many, many years anyway. But it would be nice to see that department sort of revamped because they've been working on shoestrings for years and it's begun to show. So we'll see. It's just such a weird situation to find yourself in, and like it's hard to know where the
it should be a license to print money.
It should be. It's hard to know where the expectations fall. Like there's people that are saying like, well, it's fine because like Iron Man was C-list when Iron Man came out, and that's true. Iron Man was a C-list character that no one cared about for most of our lives. But I
liked him, but
I always liked Iron Man. I always played him in the Capcom fighting games that he was in. He's a cool idea. Like the power armor suit is a cool idea, just inherently. But he was no one. He was not, all the Avengers were nothing for our entire. Like, they were also Rands. It was mutants and Spider-Man. That was it. Yeah. And they didn't even know. They had so little idea what to do with the Avengers at one point. They killed them all off and had Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld reboot them, for God's sake.
Yep.
And go back and read the Rob Liefeld Captain America if you want to really torture yourself. Good God.
Are we going to wrap this up?
Yeah, but expectations have changed because one of the things that Iron Man and the early MCU had going for it was no one had any expectations for it. No one expected anything out of it.
It came out of nowhere, yeah.
And all of a sudden, I
couldn't believe it when people told me how good it was.
No,
and I went and saw it, and I was like, oh, you're right.
I very specifically remember that opening where he gets like bombed and the hood gets pulled off and it cuts to Iron Man. I'm like, holy shit, I'm invested in an Iron Man movie. What the? But now it's the bar's up here now, and you have to deliver what audiences expect, and DC hasn't been able to do that. And the counter here is that James Gunn has been able to do that multiple times. So we'll see in a couple years or more. I don't know if they're going to stick to that 2025 Superman release date, but 2 years is not a long time to make a movie that big.
Yeah, it's not. Yep.
Didn't work out too well for Rise of Skywalker. I'm saying get it right rather than get it out.
I'd agree. Yep. Okay. Unfortunately, that's going to have to stop there. We can't answer any more questions. We're already way over time. Thanks to everyone who got the questions in. I'm sorry.
Don't ask me about superhero movies.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew when I chose that question, I knew what was going to happen. But anyway, first of all, thank you to our sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream, by the way, is a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirits International Competition. I had no idea, but well deserved. If you enjoy drinking and if you enjoy drinks like Bailey's, you should definitely check out LS Cream. Head to creamls.com. There's everything there, all the information on the drink. There's a store locator. You can find it anywhere. Support sifters, support gamers. LS Cream, made by a sifter, made by a gamer.
And it will definitely change the coffee game if you put it in the coffee.
That's right. I mean, yeah, you can mix it with tons of
Mix it
stuff.
with anything.
Yes, it's really good.
Well, not any. I wouldn't put it in a margarita, but like
That would be interesting.
That'd be a little weird. But like anything that's like going for like non-fruity sweet. If you're going for more,
you make espresso martinis.
Yeah,
all kinds of fun stuff. So that's it for GameFace. If you're listening to this show out on any of the podcast services, and it's everywhere, and you want to support us, head to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD without the E. You can pledge whatever you want, but if you pledge at $4 or more, you get all our content at least 4 days early. In the case of Pachter Factory, you get it a week early. And another thing to remember, too, is that if you are a patron, you do not have to watch ads. So we get people who complain sometimes on YouTube that we run ads on our show. By the way, we only run an ad. The most frequent we ever get with ads is one every 12 minutes. And we still have people who complain. It's like, I don't know about you, Matt, but like every YouTube video I watch, within the first 45 seconds of that video, there's an ad. Because they know people will start watching it and they'll close out and they want to get that ad. We don't do any of that stuff. So people who are giving us crap about our ad frequency, come on, man. Do you watch any other content on YouTube? And two, if it bothers you that much, head to patreon.com/sifted and pledge, and you get an ad-free version of our shows. So on behalf of Matt and our other co-host Luna, I'm Shane. We'll be back here next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. GameFace is up and out.